exact stream on.
So is this on your channel or the Breakfast Club channel?
The Breakfast Club channel.
Okay, that explains why. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah, I put this on the Breakfast Club because that's who we are and that's what we're all about. So Phoenix, are you here? Is she here? Or is that old stuff? It looks like it's old stuff. We'll see.
I see a Phoenix that says hey hey hey. Oh.
Yep.
That's a comment coming. Also, you didn't multi-stream this to Facebook, right? This is only on YouTube.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Incidentally, we do seem to be live already.
Yeah. It started automatically. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I just got the.
Surprise! You're live.
Well, I figured, pop out the live chat if nothing else, so that I can see what people are saying about us.
I am still trying to remember why don't I have
hello everyone
computer, that's why.
Anyway, yeah, hello everybody, welcome to the Breakfast Club. As you can see, we've got 6 people on screen and more coming. So say hi everybody. Hi everybody. Like the Brady Bunch.
It's a happy reunion.
It is a happy reunion. I'm particularly happy to see everybody here, but like Nathan, I've really missed you, man. And JJ, I really missed you too. It seems like forever since I've seen you.
Missed you guys too.
Forever. Yeah.
Yeah, by now, isn't JJ she's like got a doctorate or something, right?
No,
like
not quite there yet. We'll see.
Well, just think, now you have all the time in the world to do nothing but study.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
No more excuses, right?
Yeah.
So you need to dial back that party life.
I'm like, shit. God, no,
JJ, for hearing impaired people, if everybody's wearing masks, that's going to be a bit of an issue, isn't it?
They're making them now where you can.
They have a whole a clear window.
Yeah,
my
like
friend
a plastic
has one.
Oh right, okay, that's kind of cool.
So you can like actually see her lips. I don't know how that works though, because I was thinking about that and I'm like, how does that work without it basically becoming like a window, like,
That's true. I don't know. I haven't tried one yet.
Maybe
I still wish I had
on it and then like make words with your tongue.
I still wish I had a full-on Darth Vader helmet so I could walk around just to see, we're full-on scuba gear, with the tank on the back and everything. Just sort of like cosplay flash mob type stuff,
It's weird because when you actually wear a mask, people still kind of look at you like, why are you wearing a mask? It's like, bruh, are you watching the news?
Well,
it's like, what do you mean?
Listen, are you
people still give you that look like you're wearing a mask?
But I don't have
people stay away from you. They're like, oh God, that person's wearing a mask. They must be contaminated.
They do.
I actually have some masks coming.
Yeah.
A friend of mine had access to some of those, what are they, N95 masks, and he's sending me a bunch. But at the moment, the only even remotely mask-like things I have conceal my features. Like I could wear a motorcycle helmet, I suppose. It's vented, but you can close them. I'm not sure what good that would do, but I've got that. I've got this, which makes me look like a terrorist when I wear it, but it covers my mouth.
Well, I don't know what that actually is. But when you held it up, it looked like underwear. So I'm like, whoa.
Underwear works really good.
Especially a balaclava.
I'm gonna walk into the supermarket like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll go well for me, I'm sure.
It will if you put on a black robe as well, because then people will they will think it's your burqa, and then you'll be good.
Well, I think you need a black martial art outfit.
I don't think I have a black robe. I wonder if towel was
it. Right. It goes. That's your mouth, so it goes that way. All right.
Who is that bad guy that has
Bane. It looks like Bane.
Yes, thank you.
Bane.
Yeah. Hey, considering that people
I
now
know
making
that I'm not
masks,
superhero people at all.
But
people right now are making masks out of bras. So I mean,
I have one of those cheap ones. that you get off of eBay. I just throw that thing on and call it a day. You can wash those out and everything. I'm getting
I think that's
a
a
few
lot
more of
of
those. I was
bras.
like, okay,
I
don't
think
know
that
how long this is going to last. So
I think that people are just looking for excuses to put bras on their head, especially dudes, you know, like, because it's only dudes that jump out of the shower and then they're like dancing across the floor like, hey baby, right? So I think that dudes are just like running around the house like, oh, look, I've got a mask. They can record, they need something to do, you know, their wife is like, get that off your head, you know, like, did you realize that your boob is the same size as my face? Like,
You forced me to share this link.
sorry, I maybe it's getting to me more than I realized.
Yeah, I had to share that link.
Speaking of masks, though, if anybody wants masks, I have literally compiled a list, because one of the things I've been doing on my channel in order to help with, because I'm, you know, Ren Fair community, Ren Fair festivals, blah, 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 that's me. And I've started hosting on Sundays a handmade home shopping. Did you step on my cat? Oh, okay. My cat like rah, in the background. So just where I go through and we do like 10-minute segments of vendors showing their stuff. But because of this, I have compiled a list of bunches of handmade vendors out there who are handmade vendors that are all making masks. And they're the cloth kind that go over. They do all different. Some do the ones that go around your back. I've seen actually vendors making these headbands that you put on their like fleece, and they've got big buttons on the side. That way you don't have to put the mask, if it's elastic, around your ears. You put the headband on and you hook it around these buttons so that it doesn't hurt the back of your ears. I was like, that's brilliant.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of that, and unfortunately I'm ever so mildly compoundophobic, so I could not do that. Buttons wig me out.
Buttons specifically.
Yeah, well, no, actually, I would say formal clothing specifically. Something about formal clothing gives me a Wiggins, and I don't know why.
Well, okay. You have a Wiggins, but do you have an Ender?
Yes, Wiggins was actually a reference to Buffy, but okay.
I've never seen.
Funny
I've never
because
seen
the formal wear thing is also a reference to Buffy. Those hellhounds that attack everyone in formal wear.
Oh yeah,
Funny little-
You're right with the prom. Okay.
Ooh boy. Oh, man.
So I want to ask everybody, like individually, like what's it like where you're at right now in terms of how people are taking it seriously or not taking it seriously? Because I think there's an awful lot of disparity, definitely in America and certainly in this country as well, where some people are like, hey, you know, if I get it, I'm going to be fine. And they just really resent the whole social distancing thing, and they resent that everything's closed. And they don't. And I can fully appreciate, for example, that people don't want to just like snap to attention and volunteer for house arrest. You know, I can totally understand why that's uncomfortable, but I kind of understand also at the moment why it's necessary. So I just can't. You can't get used to it. That's my opinion. We just can't get used to it. What's it like where you're at, Kate? In terms of people, are they panicking or?
Well, I can only tell you how it was a week and a half ago because I haven't gone further than my mailbox in that long. But I know that there are lines for the supermarket, and I know it's only open from 7 to 7. I know there's a lot less traffic out on the street, but San Diego County has like 170 some confirmed cases. So most people are like, well, it's not that huge a deal here yet. So,
Right.
But not that people aren't being cautious. It's just that nobody's panicking, if you see the difference.
Good. Yeah. Yeah.
But then again,
about you,
like
Emmy?
I say, my info is a week and a half out of date, so don't quote me.
Yeah. What about you? You.
Who are you pointing at?
I'm pointing at SisterDanger. Sorry. How come you can't?
I think he means SisterDanger.
Yeah, SisterDanger. What's it like where you're at? I mean, are people?
Her sound's not coming through.
All right. Okay. What about you then, Swordsage? What are people
But
doing?
let's see if we can get her on first.
Okay.
Can you hear me
There we
now?
go.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I accidentally muted myself. Okay, I'm sorry. So we're at ground zero, basically up here. We had the first case, actually here in Everett was the first reported case of coronavirus in the United States that we know of. So just north, and then it kind of went from here, and then we had the whole thing in Kirkland. So I guess we're kind of like, even though New York definitely has more cases of it now than we do here, it's sort of started here, and so it's been weird for a little bit, but people definitely are taking it seriously around here. It's empty. I mean, the streets, the freeways, it's just, there hasn't been traffic. And I mean, the traffic in Seattle is notoriously bad. And there has not been traffic up here for weeks, not even at 5 o'clock rush hour. It's just vacant, like I go to a stoplight and there's 5 cars at the stoplight, because I go driving to do the grocery delivery, and it's difficult to not just speed at like 60 miles per hour everywhere I go, because there's nobody. There's just, it's empty, and I'm just like, and I'm normally really, I try to go the speed limit like granny.
Sure.
But
well, in Washington, you live pretty close to nature, don't you? So are you finding like lots of wild animals in the streets and stuff now? Because I've seen videos all over the world of like mountain goats coming down into towns and shit like that.
Well, I have not. So the complex that we live in, we actually are on a wetland, and we have a little area that we can walk in, like that has a trail that's built on it. And I was actually just out on there today because I'm like, my God, I cannot just sit at it. I'm gonna balloon if I just sit here and eat food and never get up and exercise. That is gonna be a thing, right? Yeah. Then my brain went into like crazy, like futuristic sci-fi where humans are all just like Baron Harkonnen, but inside. So,
if I may, real quick, about the like ballooning up and all of that exercise. This is what VR is for.
Man, that looks awesome. Actually, I kind of wish I had a VR setup. Yeah, so it's crazy. Definitely there are, I mean, everything is closed. So there are no bars. Nobody's going to restaurants. Things like grocery stores are open. The post office is open. But I confess that I don't actually go to pretty much any place other than a grocery store or the post office. So I think convenience stores are probably, gas stations are open. Because I definitely have to get that. But it's sort of like there's a divide though in people that it seems like most people are taking it seriously. And I just saw an article today that said Oregon has estimated that the spread of the virus has been slowed down by 70% just by people doing the masks, practicing social distancing, staying inside, and of course, all of those are like a guessing game of numbers, right? That they're like, well, we estimate it would go this fast, and so now it's not, and so, whatever, you guys can figure that math out. But
sure.
But up here, it's like, depending on where I go, and I mean, for the love of God, stay away from Walmart, because that seems to be the place where nobody gives up about, I mean, I go to Fred Meyer, I go to QFC, I go to wherever, and people, like, they've put up the plexiglass in Fred Meyer between you and the tellers, the people ringing you out. You are not allowed to use your own. After this state went through like crazy politics to outlaw the use of plastic bags, and they wanted everybody to get reusable bags. They're like, you cannot use a reusable bag unless you buy it here at the store. If you've brought your own, do not set it on the belt. Do not take it out of your cart. Like, you don't get to use it. We will bag your own. They bag your groceries for you. Like, like back in the old days, right? They do it all for you. And you basically are, they have at the grocery stores little squares that are 6 feet apart where everybody is supposed to stand so that they are otherwise they just crowd up on each other.
Right.
And but I mean, like Walmart, oh, terrible. It's just nobody there. I mean, these people are right up, walking past each other, brushing shoulders. Nobody's wearing masks. People are in their pajamas that it doesn't look like they've washed since quarantine began. It's
I hate to say it, but most of the people who are ignoring the pandemic are people where if I had to choose, they're the ones I'd kill.
Wow.
I'm not the first person to say
problem?
this.
I don't know.
I'm not the first person to say this. I actually saw this on Twitter, but someone made the point that the people who are pretending like, there's nothing really going on and COVID's no big deal and they don't want to practice social distancing. Those are the people that if they were bitten by a zombie would hide the fact that they had a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
So what about you, Swordsage? What's it like where you're at, man?
Well, it's quite similar to SisterDanger, considering that we live in the same state.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually in Olympia, though I
thought you were in Texas.
Yeah, I thought you were someplace Midwest as well.
Wow. For some reason, my brain went to New Jersey.
The last place I would ever be, especially now, is Texas.
Be careful, JJ's from Texas.
I thought JJ was from Philadelphia or something. What?
No, you guys probably thought I was in the Midwest because for a while I was.
Dallas.
I lived in Indiana for a time, like right at the border of Illinois. But 2.5 years ago, a little over a half, I moved out to Washington, and I've been out here ever since. Obviously, I work in Kent, so so that's ground zero right now for the craziness going on, and it's funny. Like I pretty much can repeat what SisterDanger was saying, right down to where you don't want to shop at Walmart. Like right now, because they don't care. The place I normally go is Winco. They literally have a line. You cannot just go in. They only let people in 1 or 2 at a time.
Yep.
And they wait for people to come out, and then you go in. And they also have tape marked off, like you can only be this distance and stuff like that. And it's like vultures went through. Like the shelves are almost completely empty, full of stuff, and things like that. But if you go to Walmart, nobody cares. Like it's seriously like no man's man. That if they ain't nothing gonna happen to us. Keep believing that. Yeah. So yeah, you don't want to go there. But everywhere else I've seen that's actually managed sensibly, they're doing whatever they can to keep people separate. I mean, again, I live in the same state, so I'm pretty much going to say the same thing that SisterDanger just said about traffic, about how a lot of businesses are closed, where you can't really be out in the street, doing whatever, you got to actually have, proper business, whether you're getting supplies or whether you work for a so-called essential company, which I do, plus I'm in IT, so I have to be out there. But I will say this, where I work right now, and I don't know about you guys, but where I happen to work, they are paranoid. You cannot go in, like literally when you walk in, they got people at the front door, masks and gloves behind glass booths with freaking thermal thermometers. Like they'll put up against your skin. And if you are above a certain temperature, you cannot go in. They literally, if you refuse a test, you can't go in. If your temperature is higher than it should be, you can't get in. When you are inside, they got everything marked off, tape, 6 feet apart so that everyone walking around stays at least 6 feet from everyone else. The stations where people work out, they've now taken certain spots out to keep people separate. The break rooms, they've removed seats to keep everybody from staying that close. Our old, no congregations. Like even the group meetings we used to have in the beginning of our shifts to get everybody hyped up, gone, done. Almost all meetings have been completely canceled. If we do have meetings, it's all online. It's all through Messenger. Like everyone's got to stay at their computer. People at their cubicles. The cubicles now, like if one person's staying right there, the other person cannot sit directly behind them. They really spaced everything out. And granted, they were already paranoid in the beginning when this was first spreading out. And they were telling everybody to wash your hands, do that. There was more hand sanitizer going around. But then 2 confirmed cases happened in the building. And that really freaked them out. Like the day they found out, I was lucky, I wasn't there. But the day they found out, they were like, who did you talk to? Who were you around? They were like looking at cameras to see who they were close to. anyone that was like, anyone who was within spitting distance of those two, if you so much as looked at them through a window, you were out. I mean, they didn't kick you out. They're going to pay for your quarantine time, but they're like, get the hell out, get tested, do not come back until we know you're negative. We're at 50% capacity at best.
Wow.
At best. And unfortunately, I mean, I'm in a negative, so I got to be in there making sure machines are still running, computers are still running, but yeah, this company's definitely taking it seriously. This state's definitely taking it seriously.
Yeah.
So
no doubt about it. But I think it's for the best.
Yeah, we had a confirmed case in our building, but the town didn't let us know because they were not a resident of the town. They lived in New York City and worked in our building. So when we found that out and we called to confirm, and they're like, "Oh, well, we didn't think to let you guys know." I'm like, "Well, we're in the building. What are you doing?" So and I've got 2 employees that are 70 plus. So, I got some very high risk people and a couple, one person who's not 70, but it's older and immunocompromised. So, so basically we decided we shut our office. We're still working because what I do automation controls. It's mostly programming and design kind of stuff. So we can do all that from home. And we still have our weekly Monday meeting. We just do it with Zoom or Skype or something like that. But and the thing is, because we support essential industries, we're considered essential. But I'm still trying to get us. New Jersey hasn't actually put a travel ban in place, but I'm trying to get essential employee ID cards. But because there's no travel ban in place, they're kind of dragging their feet about issuing them. But then, of course, once they enter a travel ban, then we're gonna have to wait to get one. So it's gonna be a pain in the ass. But what gets me is about all the when trying to shop and everything. I expect in the beginning, you had people who were afraid of a shortage, who created the shortage, and then now, I mean, I'm still kind of flummoxed that there's still shortages because all the stuff people bought a month ago, they can't possibly have used it. Yeah. I mean, we had 14 rolls of toilet paper, and we got 24 more. And then 4 more after that, and we still have 30 rolls. There's 2 people in the house. We're good for the next 2 months. How much toilet paper can you use?
But then again,
I suppose it depends on what you're eating, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I was like, questions not to ask.
But then again, keep in mind, not to cut in, but you live in New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't there a case in New York where they caught that one dude who was hoarding a whole lot of masks and stuff because he was planning on selling them later?
Yeah,
you got people like that doing it too. So that's
they do that.
And there was that guy in Tennessee who had 17,000 containers of hand sanitizer that he was trying to sell for $70 a pop on Amazon.
There's videos going around, comedy videos. There's this guy drives up in his car to another guy out on the sidewalk, and he's like, "Hey, come here," and the guy goes, "Not a cop, right?" And he hands some money through the window, and the guy takes out of his jacket some toilet paper.
I've seen that one.
It's actually supposed to be illegal to do that. I mean, it sounds kind of ironic to say, "Oh, kidders, look at that."
Kitty cat.
So, classically speaking, which it seems so ironic to say because corporations get away with doing it all the time, especially in pharmaceuticals, but it's actually not legal to artificially inflate the prices of something especially at a time where people need that thing, right? Because
price gouging is illegal. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it blows my mind. People, you make me sad. You make me sad that you are proving why this was made into a law because you are that jerk face that is out there just.
Amazon made it. They caught people doing that, and they were like, if you see somebody doing that, report them to us, and they're gonna go in and I guess make them bring down the price or give you the money back or something. Mm-hmm. But I know on eBay, eBay is people just wilding out on eBay.
Well, on eBay though, it's a little bit
eBay.
different because can't you on eBay if they put it up for a bid, right? That can just keep going, and there's nothing wrong with that because they could set their price at $5, but if somebody's like, no, I'll pay 10 for it, and buy now or whatever, that's kind of
what happens.
That's kind of like a loophole.
But what happens is that you get to a point where you'll find people who have good prices, but then the shipping is like $9 to ship.
Yeah, the $1 thing of hand sanitizer for $10 shipping,
$30 shipping. Yeah, that crap.
It's ridiculous.
Well, to me, all the price gouging. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Nathan.
Oh no, I was just gonna say Target here in Chicago. Target does have they have like toilet paper now, but typically by the time you get there, it's half gone. But they do have it. Hand sanitizer though, alcohol. That's out of the question. You're not finding that.
I have seen one place that had hand sanitizer since I've been out. And when I tried to order gloves, the latex gloves to go grocery shopping on Amazon, I mean, we're the land of Amazon. This is like Jeff Bezos is next door, right? 1 month was my shipping time. And
it's pretty bad.
Actually, you can't even get them now. If you hop onto Amazon, it says these are reserved for hospitals and other businesses that need it. Like an individual citizen cannot get the rubber glove. And while we're on the subject of Amazon, there's this Seattle thing. You're not a true Seattleite until you've worked for either Amazon, Starbucks, Microsoft, or Boeing. And I've worked for 2 of those. One of them was Amazon's warehouse.
Does F5 count? I mean, that's a pretty big one up here. I don't know.
I actually don't know.
If I may interject, fuck Amazon. Fuck those motherfuckers. No, honestly, I mean it. I'm serious. When this fucking lockdown first started, fucking week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever, they were fucking on the internet asking for public donations to help staff during this difficult fucking time. You fucking kidding me?
They don't pay any tax. They want help.
Yeah.
It's worse than that. You heard about that guy who tried to organize a strike, like a sick out, and Amazon not only fired him,
he actually was diagnosed
on how to smear him in the media.
But he was diagnosed when before he did that, he knew that he had COVID and he was still going to work. That's why Amazon fired him. I mean, probably it didn't help that he went and did the thing, but I mean, that's like. That's like practically a terrorist act to be like, I know that I've got it, but I'm going to go to work anyway. Fuck everybody else.
There's leaked memos saying that's not why they fired him at all.
I have not seen leaked memos. I will definitely
all I'm gonna say
to you on that.
All I'm going to say is this, as far as the whole Amazon thing, and this is me not being an Amazon apologist. I'm just a realist when it comes to a mega billion corporation like this, and I should say right off the bat that when it comes to billionaires and millionaires, I am not on their side.
Right.
I've always had the particular belief that if you're owning billions, you're a parasite, and that's it. However, one thing I do know about Amazon is that not every facility is run the same. Right. That's one of the things I've seen this firsthand. Not every facility is run the same, and I know that the one in Staten Island has problems.
See,
it
has what?
They got problems. The way it's run, the management there.
I believe it.
Oh God.
I mean, the one thing I was going to say that to me with between the price gouging and like companies like Amazon having the gall to ask for public assistance when they don't pay any fucking taxes, is that to me this situation and how bad everything's gone is a complete refutation of any form of anarchism, and particularly of right-wing libertarian or narco-capitalism. Because basically, under that mode, anybody, first if you got the money, you can buy it. If you get there first, you can take it. Obviously, that's not a way to have a constructive society. And that's the thing. I'm not anti-capitalist. I run a business. So I'm okay with capitalism. to a degree.
But controlled capitalism is
control, right? Absolutely regulated.
Yeah. There's no such thing as unregulated capitalism. That's terrible.
And I was already on board with the idea that anarchists and right-wing libertarians were leeches anyway. But to me, this is the absolute proof that their system cannot, will not, will never work, and is detrimental to a society.
Yeah, so I guess what it comes down to, for me, the way I've been phrasing it is that if you treat money as an end unto itself, where you have so much that it becomes a way to keep score and that's it, then yeah, you're a parasite, like you said. I mean, I know some people who sort of ended up with more money than they know what to do with and started using it for helping other people. Like, we could go down the rabbit hole of whether or not J.K. Rowling is
a
horrible
turf or whatever.
Exactly. But she apparently, when she reached $1 billion from Harry Potter, she started donating to charity. So at least that is on their side.
But then you could also say that, Bill Cosby did a lot for his community too.
Oh, sure. I'm not in any way being a J.K. Rowling apologist. My point is, though, that at least...
No, I just think it shows the gray area of how...
Well, but my point, though, is whether or not someone is using money as an end unto itself or as a tool for making the world better, that's the difference between the parasites and the responsible rich, I'll call them. I don't know.
I would like to see, like, I'm with Sirius. Like, I also own a business, so I definitely like, yay capitalist. But I also believe that, one, not unregulated capitalism, and two, I definitely think that there should be a very clear connection, which I don't think exists in our society, between what the people who have the most have and what the poorest amongst us looks like. So when you see people talking about, like, we'll just use a company for the small example. If you're going to allow your CEO to make $1 million a year, that's great if they can achieve that, right? But at some point, if they make over that or whatever it is, that should be coming back to, say, civil and public services, or to your other, to then you can be like, wow, this is what I can make. I went over it by $2 million because I'm an awesome CEO. And now that means I can raise the base pay of all these other people in my company with that money. And when you create that clear connection, it still allows your top person to do the thing, because those people are motivated. I am motivated by being able to strive for that and get that success and do that thing, right? But when that becomes disconnected from the responsibility that you have to all the infrastructure that makes it possible for me to be out there trying to do the thing I'm doing, that's when we have this complete breakdown, right? And I'm hoping, I am just like, my fingers are so crossed, because I mean, yes, I have my own business, but I'm a tiny little home business. I'm not anything like a huge, I don't have employees. It's just me, and I think that makes me smaller than you, Sirius. But
I get 10 employees.
Yeah, but I'm hoping that, because people are so angry right now with huge corporations, that we are going to see people in their anger starting to proactively, more than ever, be like, where else can I buy these things? Who else can I get this from? And we're going to start seeing people looking for the small businesses and looking for the community, those people, their next door neighbor that have the skills to make the whatever, build the whatever, and stop worrying so much about, can I get this for cheap, versus, can I get this from somebody or someplace that isn't Jeff Bezos?
Right.
Well,
Can I get this at all? Is the question
happening
right now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let me be the jerk in the room, I guess. I don't see that happening. I've lived in this country too long. I've seen the same pattern in similar situations over and over again. As I said to you guys before, before the cameras came on, we've had so many. I hope this is the moment that they wake up. I hope this is the moment. If this doesn't get people to change, I don't know what it will. We've been going through that for 20 years, 30 years.
Oh my God, Angel.
Hey,
Oh, it's been ages. Welcome. Welcome.
Yes, I get to celebrate my birthday with you too.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy
birthday.
Well,
That's
I'm
awesome.
glad your parents fucked.
I'm glad I wasn't the only person that dropped an F-bomb just now.
That's great.
Yeah.
I miss BionicDance.
What was it gonna? But just to finish my point, I mean, maybe you guys have some better examples to give me to try to convince me, but I've just seen too many times. Well, even now, with the crisis the way it's happening, instead of seeing people getting angry and banding together to change, a system that is obvious to anybody with 1 or 2 working brain cells that it's broken, it's not working. What are people doing? They're hoarding toilet paper instead and then selling it to the highest bidder.
Right.
That's what we're doing. We're not, let's see if we can go to local businesses to get stuff from them. No, they're going to places like Walmart or they're going over to Amazon and then buying huge amounts of stuff to keep for themselves. That's not the sort of mind state that's going to then go, let's support our fellow local businesses and our fellow man. That's not what
I
that's
don't
the
think that's the majority,
I
though.
see both happening, though. I do see people. I absolutely see what you're saying. I absolutely see tons of examples of that. But I do see people that are saying, "Hey, you know what? The restaurants are closed and they're only doing pickup. Hey, let's order from the local place and not go to the chain. Not order from the chain restaurant because screw Starbucks, screw I can't even think of any chains right now, but Applebee's. There you go. And go to our local because that is a family. But the thing is, it is sad though. I mean, basically, when people are under stress, they do one of those two things. They either go to one side or the other. They either turn inward or they turn outward. And I think that's really the main difference. I was telling a friend the other day, the main difference between a liberal mind and a conservative mind. And I know, I'm not talking about like individual policy, but in the broad terms about socially, people who are socially conservative and socially liberal. That's, I think, the main difference is whether they turn inward or outward. Because one generally comes from a more fear-based thing. Like look at it now. People are buying guns in ridiculous quantities again, like when Obama was president. What are they going to do? Shoot the virus?
Well, I mean, I figure they're picturing a sudden Mad Max zombie apocalypse that they're going to need to defend themselves against the people who are having the food riots.
Right. But it's weird.
My next door neighbor. Yeah.
Do not cling to water.
There's zero reason that there's actually going to be a real shortage because we've always had enough. Unless all the farmers get sick, unless the food processors all get sick, there's not going to be any real shortages. But instead of looking at that, like, hey, you know what? If we make sure everyone has some, we'll be okay. But there's people who do that, and there's people who do what. The problem is, it doesn't take a lot of the people doing the bad stuff to mess up everybody else.
Well, and of course, we've also got the ones going out and deciding to beat up Asian people, whether they're Chinese or not, because the Chinese virus, like that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Well, you do know why that was stated, right?
Oh yeah, because of Trump.
Oh yeah,
but not why that was stated.
Oh well, I can think of multiple reasons. What's yours?
Well, my whole thing is, okay, it's the same pattern that these guys do every time. When they screw up, blame somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that was...
People have been knowing, again, years ago, this country was warned that it needed to be prepared for a pandemic. No one listened. The beginning of this year, when it was obvious that there was a problem worldwide, this country was warned by its own its own health officials. We need to do something about this.
By the military.
And the guys in charge, well, remember, the guys in charge already got rid of the little bit of infrastructure that was tried to set up to fend this off in the first place. So yeah, we knew where their minds were at. They went on, there is recordings of this jerk saying, I'm not worried about it. Now it's, I knew it was a pandemic all along. No, you weren't. So what's the next thing? The anger that people are feeling? Well, it came from them. Get mad at them. Don't get mad at me for not protecting you like a smaller freaking country with less money was able to do. No, blame them.
Well, that's
Don't
the thing
blame us
Trump.
for not having proper infrastructure. That's
Trump,
what it is.
As I understand it, Trump's dad told him that winning at all costs, no matter what you can do, you have to win.
Right.
And right now he's trying to win the PR war, where it's like, this can't possibly be my fault. I'm not the one who brought this upon you. I'm your hero, your champion, and you can't blame me. That's been Trump's mindset through this whole thing. So
no.
I mean,
Watch me.
like a lot of it is, you know, him saying basically it won't happen here, not on my watch. And when it starts happening on his watch, well, now I'm the one who's going to win by having only 200,000 deaths.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the thing
I don't.
this tactic that they're using. I mean, it's been typical again of that kind of right wing mindset. And you think about it, like we always talk about why are there blue collar conservative people who vote against their own interests? And because what they do is they get, and that thing is, and they're angry, and they have a right to be angry. But the thing is, the people that they should be angry are the ones they're voting for, who are actually doing it to them. But they've convinced them that it's black people, it's Latinos, it's women, it's feminists, it's gay people, it's trans people, it's the disabled, it's it's all these other people, and it's never the people who are pulling the levers. And unfortunately, that pisses me off the part that it works. That's the part that upsets me.
Well, here's the thing now. Okay, granted, maybe some people will say, how can you possibly be in favor of this? But there's a playlist on YouTube called the Alt-Right Playbook, where it lays out like the conservative mindset. And a lot of it is just that these people, even if they can't be a big fish, at least want to be one of the minions of the big fish so that they are not the lowest of the low. And they love their bullies. I mean, there was an article I was seeing recently where it was talking about how like a lot of liberals, a lot of left wingers will look at the conservatives and see them just as people who haven't yet been given a good reason to be left wing, that they just don't have sufficient information, because if they had sufficient information, they'd realize how terrible the right wing is. But no, the truth is that they love how terrible the right wing is. They love it and they want to be part of it. And trying to convince them to be more left wing just plain isn't going to work.
No. And not only that, but there's also just, again, being the pessimist in the room, there's also the way our minds work. I like throwing this out to people every now and then just to get them to be just a little bit worried about their brains. I'll throw out this math problem. This one math problem that 50% of Harvard students, really smart ones, fail. And I'm about to throw it out to you guys. There is a bat and a ball that together cost $1.10. The bat costs $1 more than the ball does. How much does the ball cost?
$1 more than the ball?
Yeah, if you want, I will put it in the I'll put it in our chat, and then later on I'll put it in the live chat.
I've heard this.
$1.05 versus $5, right?
Yeah, $1. All right, I'm gonna put it here. $1.10 equals bat and the ball. So let me just put that down right here. Equal sign equals bat and ball. Bat costs.
I mean, it's a pretty simple algebraic equation.
Yeah, $1 more than ball.
Yeah.
So how much is ball?
Well, if the ball costs 5 cents and the bat is $1.05, that equals $1.10. Therefore, the bat is $1.05.
Yeah, you got it right. Most people think it's 10 cents.
Yes, because they just do
see why they would think that.
And I bet, I just said this out loud, and I'm pretty sure, like when this finally catches up in the live chat, let's see how many people are going to put, if they do, are going to say 10 cents. Obviously, it's 10 cents. It's 10 cents. So many people instantly go, it's 10 cents. They don't think it through, because you got it's for, to really oversimplify the way the brain works. You got two ways that you function. You're kind of intuitive, quick, ready to jump, and then the actual logical part of your brain. Sometimes I call it the emotional side versus the logical side. The logical side always takes a little bit more energy and functions slower, but tends to think things through. That's not your default. Your default is the more instinctive side. The instinctive side works off of previous information and on instinctual thinking. And many times that gut instinct is wrong. It's just what we're used to doing. Now, when you apply that to the type of rhetoric that demagogues use or sensationalists use, or if you want to be blunt, right-wing use, they work on that stuff that just seems to make the most sense.
Right.
So when you look at it, well, obviously you're going to call it the Chinese virus because it came from China. It takes the logical part to go, wait a minute, no, like that's not how how you name diseases, and this is going to happen everywhere else. No, but the instinctive part that wants to just jump on things, yeah, that makes sense. What's wrong with that? You look at a lot of their rhetoric, the blaming rhetoric they use, all that type of stuff. It appeals to that jump reaction part of the brain that we are on default on.
Right.
It's rare to find somebody who's on the more, wait a minute. I'm not saying that we can't achieve that. If we couldn't work on that logical side, society wouldn't be where it's at now to a certain extent.
Well,
but it takes training to jump on that particular part.
When you don't have something that you can literally fight, like you can't beat up or shoot a disease, but you still have all of that pent up anger at something, at having no control. Obviously, some people are going to lash out at the Chinese virus, that kind of thing. They're going to say, yeah, they need an enemy to fight. That's part of the right-wing mindset, is having the other that you're not part of because you're in the in-group.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I got into an argument with some guys the other day about this exact topic. And what got me is that these guys were insisting that they should call it the Chinese. Actually, one guy was insisting calling it the Chinese flu. Get this, because of accuracy. Well, first off, if you care about accuracy, you wouldn't call it a flu, because it's not a flu. It's a coronavirus. It's not,
you call it by its damn medical name.
Influenza is a different type of virus than coronaviruses. There, no coronaviruses are flus. So right off the bat, you're wrong. And secondly, then he tried to make the thing of, what about we have like West Nile virus? I'm like, okay, that would be the same. That would at best get you to Wuhan virus, but if we call it the Egyptian virus, everybody would recognize that was patently racist. So
right.
There you go. And so calling it the Chinese virus is the functional equivalent of calling it the Egyptian virus.
If you're going to call it the Chinese virus, you might as well just call it Kung Flu.
Which some people have been calling it that.
Yeah, they have, actually.
Fox News a couple of times.
Yep, I've heard it.
Might as well just strap your freaking red armband on and go for it, okay? Like, that's right, I just went there. Like, it makes me so... People and their bigotry and racism, like, it makes me very angry. But what you were saying, Swordsage, I actually agree with that quite a lot. And I don't know. I have spent a lot of time in delving into those far right crowds in the past. Basically as a method of what goes on here. What are these people's actual viewpoints, and how is it that they think, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things I think about in direct relation to what you were saying is, you were saying that they love their bullies and they love this. So, and I agree that yes, absolutely, when you are thinking something through in a logical fashion or a rational fashion, and you are attempting to disprove the things, this is definitely much more complicated thinking. It takes time, it takes energy, and so a lot of people we're just lazy kind of by nature, and we don't like to do that. We like the shortcut, we like the easy answer. I think that's probably true for all of us in some way, shape, or form, whatever that may be. But also something that I think is true is that it only takes so unless we literally were to employ something like eugenics and try to, even though eugenics is a really bad example for this because intelligence isn't related to your genetics. But anyway, let's pretend for a second like it was, and we were going to try to get rid of the dumb people, right? So unless we were to try to do something like that, there is no way in the free span of humanity that we are going to ever be without somebody at the low end of that curve, right? Yeah. There's always going to be somebody there. And those people, regardless of how we think about all humanity, like everybody has their equal human rights, we all deserve the right to live and to defend ourselves, et cetera, et cetera. Some people, no matter what, will never be able to grasp complicated, higher concepts, those sorts of ideas that eventually have led to civilization becoming lawful, and societies developing rules that are something more than, if I can beat you most with the stick, I get to take the meat home. And there's just always going to be that segment of people. And in any civilized world like we are in, it only takes one person, this is true on a global scale. Like, look at countries that are still third world countries that are running around just like in their own internal wars that have nothing to do with the rest of us, and look how advanced they are, you know, with clean water and other things that we consider quite basic, right? As long as one person out there is willing to be that person that picks up the stick or the gun and will engage in basically a mortal combat, you know, will engage in that to, you know, finish him, right? All of the rest of us are forced to have to be willing to also go to the absolute final length in order to self-protect. Right? And civilization is where we all agree, like we have the social contract of we all agree that, wow, I don't want to die, you don't want to die, we shall agree to table killing each other as an option for dealing with conflict, and thus we become a little more civilized and a little more civilized. But it pretty much starts with let's not kill each other and let's find a different way, and we'll agree to do that, and that's when killing becomes a crime. But as long as one person is willing to not abide by that rule, we all have to be willing then at some level to go to that length in order to make sure that we can take on whatever's out there, and to stop that person. And I feel like what you're saying, you know, with regards, like, you just get these far right people, they love their bullies. That's those people. They are willing to break that social contract, or to maybe only have it within their tiny little group. And I don't know if that's because they ultimately reside in fear. You know, they fear that if they do not take the aggressive stance of, I will go to this length and I'll go there first, that they're going to become a victim. Or are they really just bigots? They're just like, I just hate those people because they're the guilty ones. You know, they're just looking for somebody to blame. I don't know what causes it. Maybe they're too stupid. I don't know.
I think it's a little bit of both, because I've seen there's definitely a fear mentality. I mean, think about, you know, Obama even just said years ago when he was running for president, you know, how they cling to their guns and their Bibles. And what did they do? They ran for their guns and their Bibles, and they were mad that he said it, and then they went and did it just to kind of.
Well, you know, I mean, one serious problem, honestly, at least in my life, is that I don't feel like my government represents me at all anymore. Like, maybe if we had elected Bernie Sanders, but I mean, hell, I was raised in South Burlington, Vermont. I know Bernie Sanders really well. But, you know, it's like if we've got ourselves the far right and then the centrist left, or the Democrats in name only, Republicans in Democrat clothing, where do I fit in this country? And I mean, like, I was raised by hippie peaceniks, so I'm unlikely to be this person, but that's the kind of thing, that feeling alone is the kind of thing that can radicalize someone, that can make them start saying, hey, I need to do something about this. I need to get out there in the streets and start bashing some heads until the country starts moving in a direction that makes me feel included. And I mean, I think that's where a lot of people get radicalized, is when they don't feel included anymore.
Yeah.
You know, now again, like I say, that's not me. I'm going to reserve my violence for verbal shit on the internet. But there's other people out there who are probably less restrained than I, who on the left might start fighting using the kind of violence we expect from the right.
I think too, also, that people don't realize. So these people, they get to have these violent ideas and tendencies from the safety of a world where we have the law and the military and the general civility of society keeping them safe. If they were suddenly launched into a world where, as they imagine, right? If they were suddenly launched into a world where they did have to be violent because that person walking up on you might just pull out a gun and shoot you in the face, or shoot your wife in the face, or your kids in the face, because you looked some way they didn't like, that when that suddenly hits home, and they don't have that wall, that invisible wall of protection that they don't recognize, and that they're going to realize, oh, it's really terrible to live in a world where everybody is walking around waiting to harm everybody.
I wanna pick up on that point.
They
Consequences.
already think they live in that world, though.
I just wanted to pick up on that point a little bit because, you know, I've probably been exposed to too much dystopian fiction in my life. Like, you know, the opportunity for authoritarianism. I mean, it really only. It's the same with a country going to total war, where you go to absolutely annihilate your opponent, or in this case, authoritarianism, where like if you decide to go there, you have to fucking fully go there, or don't go there at all. And I think they're trying to tiptoe into it, and that's not going to work because the revolution will come. I think they're calculating that the revolution will come, and they'll be the ones who write the history. So that's their calculation.
Yeah.
But I think that's a little bit bold, even you know. But
I am super okay with waiting for them to get COVID and then die, then taking their gun stoves. You know, like
well, the prime minister in this country has COVID.
Earlier about how, like, and I know a lot of people kind of gasped at this when I said that the people who are ignoring the danger of the coronavirus are the people where if I absolutely had to choose, they're the ones I'd want to get it. You know, these are the people going, these are like the evangelical crazy heads going to church still. You know?
The mega churches and
and the
Republican National Convention. You guys go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm just like, you know,
here, I gotta make a point about that as well. I gotta make a point about that.
Suicide by virus, go ahead, but
fucking DeSantis in Florida said, "Oh no, we're gonna keep all the synagogues and churches and everybody if it's open, they're gonna be considered essential services." Right? And like, fucking Mecca is closed. Mecca.
So isn't the wall? Didn't they close down the wall in Jerusalem? Like,
wow, that's amazing. When Mecca's closed, but the Florida churches are not. Actually, I want to hit on something that SisterDanger said a minute ago about them not, you know, because they don't live in the world where all these. It's funny because a lot of them even dream of it. They just love the idea of being in the Wild West where they could just blow somebody away. But they've never actually had to live in that world, as SisterDanger said. And what's interesting, and it's interesting where the dividing line comes in very much on race, because I don't know. I've always lived in the suburbs. I've never lived in you know any like you know urban setting. I don't know about Swordsage or Nathan, but basically there's a huge divide when it comes you know black and white, because the same people that are saying what you're talking about, they're the first ones to say, oh, black on black crime, without looking at the reality of living in an inner city. My nephew Tyreek was murdered in December, and the guy who killed him was posting pictures on Instagram, including somebody had set up a little memorial to him, and he took a video of himself urinating on the memorial, and so with a geotag, so the cops knew where this guy was. It was October. It took them 3 months to pick this guy up when he's broadcasting his location on a daily basis.
Depraved, man.
Yeah. So why? Because in Philadelphia, if you're a young black kid, 22, and mind you, he was not a gangbanger. He had a good job. He actually worked at Philadelphia Airport. He had a good job. He had a future ahead of him. But they don't care about another dead black kid. And so basically, I don't know what thankfully it didn't happen. But I know friends of his were planning on seeking revenge. And why not? Even I got the conservative guy who works for me, or used to anyway. He even said that, wow, if you're going to face that kind of violence and the police and the authorities are going to do absolutely nothing to defend you, it stands to reason that you would then take matters into your own hands.
Yeah.
And so it's so funny because these same guys who applauded, Cliven Bundy and his band of, nuts for taking over a government facility because they want to have their little protest and jerk their birds. But then when black people try to protect themselves, then all of a sudden that's a horrible thing. Just like,
well, that's why we have gun laws in the first place.
It was all pro gun limitations when in California, when Black Panthers told black people, "Hey, arm yourselves because these white guys are coming for us."
Yeah, that's why we have the gun laws that popped up. It is amusing to me now that things have sort of flipped a little bit in ideologies where now people are like, on the left are like, yeah, gun laws are good stuff. But if you just go back to the 60s, it was a right wing saying, no, gun laws are good stuff because they were terrified of the wrong people getting them. But
they don't have empathy because they've never had to live in that environment. And what it's like where your friend, your mother, your sister could get blown away tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, one thing you said earlier that I wanted to touch on, but it was like 5 minutes ago. You were talking about how they haven't ever had to live in that world, and a couple of months ago, I was having sort of an 80s nostalgia day and ended up watching Top Gun and Red Dawn back to back. And Red Dawn, watching it now, seemed like a right-wing NRA wet dream. It seemed like exactly what they wanted, despite the fact that there's a scene in it where you see a bumper sticker says you can have my gun when you pry it from my cold dead hand. Literally takes a gun out of a guy's cold dead hand. But also what you were saying is people talk about black on black crime, not to go back to the alt-right playbook, but it mentions that a lot of right-wingers don't see white as a race. They see it as the absence of race, that everyone else has a race because they're people of color or whatever, but us, no, we're the pure ones is the way they see it. And so, you talk about black on black crime, they never talk about white on white crime as if that were a thing.
Right.
Because they just see it as people on people crime, which is kind of sick in and of itself when you think about it, because, white people are people, but they're people of color. The way that it's crazy.
But this is kind of going back to what SisterDanger said that I wanted to touch on when she said it. And it was basically on, the idea of a social contract, the idea of people coming together rather than at each other's throats. Many of the things that we're touching on right now are ideological problems. What I mean by that, and this kind of one thing I like asking people is, do you believe that the social contract is an artificial construct or a biological one?
Artificial.
And so many people say it's artificial. But then I throw in, we're social creatures. Wolves do not need a social contract to realize that they need to survive as part of the pack. Other social creatures do not need to sit down and write a Declaration of Independence in order to form their particular groups.
Okay, but the thing is,
can talk about. Wait, let me get to my point.
All right.
Human beings every now and then get shocked into remembering that they're social creatures. Once we start talking about race, once we start talking about ideologies, once we start talking about left wing and right wing, we're now talking about social stuff. And when we start talking about how we need a social contract in order to keep us from killing each other, yeah, you need one when you've already been taught that your default state is to kill each other.
Right.
Too many people, especially the right wing, feel that the default human state. In fact, this has been a debate going on for centuries. What is the true nature of man? Are we just like when you leave us in our own particular natural state? Are we just going to bash each other over the heads and steal each other's goods? Which then again, steal each other's goods. That's something else that I want people to think about. When you're in your natural state, do you have goods or not?
Okay, so I want to go after BionicDance. BionicDance, you go, and then I want to go.
Okay. Let me amend my previous statement. When I said artificial, I meant the specifics, the minutia, because there's a lot of things we disagree on that we consider part of the social contract. But if you look at that more macro sense that you're describing, then yes, I agree that that's not quite as artificial as what I was picturing when you first asked. Second point, I said I was going to leave first. We've been on for more than an hour. I think I'm going to take off. So, make room for other people. Plus, this angel writer, you haven't said a damn thing, and someone will turn. So, I will catch you evil geniuses later. If you can't be good, don't get caught.
All right, catch you later. But I don't want to ramble too much. The point I'm trying to get to is that we have kind of like had to put band-aids upon band-aids upon band-aids of like, how do we live as a society? And then what constitutes as a real human society? If we're going to actually remember what it's like to be purely human, then yeah, concepts like ideology and race and all that type of stuff become secondary or non-existent. But when you've already been living in a society that has, for lack of a better term, run by psychopaths that basically taught you that the default state you need to be in is knock them over the head, steal their stuff, and keep them from stealing your stuff, Then later on, when you're forced to have to live with these same people because you conquered enough land, we need a social contract in order to keep us together. But you've already put these other seeds in place that they're the other. We need to tame the other. And then the people treated as the other, where they're evil. We need to destroy them because look at the society that they've raised. It takes something fundamental. Like, look, I love throwing things like, for example, 9/11. When 9/11 hit, for at least a week, 2 weeks, suddenly people completely forgot that they were supposed to be at each other's throats. I was in New York when it happened. Just a week prior, we had worries about cops. We were in the middle of the throes of dealing with the cops shooting people in the street for no damn reason other than because Giuliani said they could. Straight up black against police, black against the establishment. Then 9/11 happened. That stuff disappeared for about 2-3 weeks.
Right.
The Jews suddenly swore no longer in the gun, all that, because ideology went out the window because you were shocked into remembering we're in this together. Until the ideologies hit in, we had a new enemy to hate. The coronavirus thing, I saw similar things happening. When that first, especially around here, it first struck and you realize, oh shit, I don't got a job. We can't go outside. We can't get food. Suddenly I'm seeing people, I just cooked a whole bunch of stuff here. You want to get like just randomly to neighbors. People are remembering what it's like to be human again. But the one animal that human beings have gotten very successfully at domesticating is other human beings. So sooner or later, that training, that leash around your neck, that's forcing you to remember that in order to live in society, there has to be the other. There has to be this. This is fundamentally what we're dealing with when we're dealing with these particular problems of society and their structure and who's the enemy and all that type of stuff. When you're dealing with right-wing, especially when you're dealing with right-wing ideology, you are point blank dealing with the ideology of they're going to kill us first. We need to set up a wall of strength, and we need to set up a strong military, or we need to have a strong government to keep the others out or tame the others to be like us pure types in order to have peace.
Yeah, they project a lot.
The other thought is going to say, nah, you have to destroy that concept of the other. We're in it together. And that's that big fundamental clash that you're dealing with, that two particular schools of thought of what is our natural instinct as human beings, to kill each other for goods and services. And that in itself, goods and services, or are we in it together?
So even though earlier I was talking about like it only takes the one person, to be willing to go to that extreme, I do not think that is the natural state of humanity, because in the military there are certain, like the military has done a huge amount of studies on basically what it takes to make the super soldier, right? And part of that inspects people's. I mean, this is why you go through part of the reason, not all of the reason. I've never been in the military, so I'm not going to like speak super authoritatively here, but I do know that certain things occur when you put people into high pressure situations psychologically, et cetera, et cetera. One thing though that is very consistent is that people are. It is less people that are willing and okay with killing other humans, and the vast majority of people in the military, I don't care how much of a gun nut that guy is, right? They still err to the side of it's a really terrible thing, a terrible feeling to kill other humans. And I think that is actually, if that wasn't our default, right, we wouldn't have evolved into a more civilized, we wouldn't be here. Because the whole reason we have the social contract, artificial or not, is because we recognize that we don't like killing each other, not because we want to artificially like force other people to not kill. It's because our trend is away from killing as a whole, right? And so we've tried to make a place for that. So like I actually totally agree with you on that one, that our natural state of being is more towards a peaceful way, and that we engage in violence because of other things that are extraneous circumstances. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if it comes down to me, you, and the last bottle of water, and one of us has to die, right? I think I'm pretty safe in saying that the psychology of the vast majority of people is fight to the death for your life, right?
But I will say this though, and this is this was years ago that put me onto this whole thinking of like, okay, this is a little bit more beyond than just ideology. when I was still living in Indiana, I had went one large museum over in Chicago. Oh God, it'll come to me. But I went out there with my family. We decided to make a day of it, heading out to the museum. I think it was the Museum of Natural History. And of course, being interested in human society and all that, I went through the anthropology section. And there was a part talking about early society and how it functioned, some of the earliest things that archaeologists and anthropologists found. And the thing that sparked me in my head, like, wait a minute, we might be going about this wrong. And even I was thinking, I'm thinking about this wrong, is when they talked about what happened in earlier human societies when famine hit. The modern type of thinking is as soon as things get scarce, we become competitive. Right. And they will look at things like chimpanzees. They don't look at bonobos, even though we're closer to bonobos, but it's another topic for another time. Looking at chimpanzees, looking at tigers, look at what happens when they get scarce. They rip each other apart. The anthropological evidence suggests otherwise.
Right.
They've actually seen that when things got scarce, groups worked harder to either find more food and they shared it amongst themselves and rationed it, or they moved on to another place. And when people from other groups joined the bigger tribe because their stuff was scarce, instead of treating like, oh, wait, you come and take our meat. No, they let them in. Oh, you guys are starving? Come in. This is something that they've seen over and over again in earlier human societies, like prehistory human societies. That was the default.
Right.
Yeah.
This is fact. This is not me talking ideology. One time human beings were so good. Like, now, I'm not quoting some religious scripture here or some philosophical book. This is archaeological and anthropological evidence that has been discovered. Human beings naturally, without ideology, are more inclined to help each other out or share their resources rather than fight one another for it. And
I want to tell you a story about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just real quick, because you just reminded me, because it's not even that far back in history, mate. Because when I used to work in Alaska, I worked with this guy called Dave, and right before I worked with him, he had just got back.
Dave's not here.
He went from London to Paris on a plane, and then from Paris he literally hitchhiked all the way to India from Paris.
Holy crap!
Think about that as an American on your own with a backpack, going all the way through the Middle East by yourself. And I can believe it. I have a friend of mine who did the same thing. All he had to do was be nice to people, talk to people, let him know what he was doing. And if they asked him, what are you doing? He would say, I'm on a pilgrimage, and boom, you're welcome. That's it. Mm-hmm. The pilgrimage. Yeah, and that world doesn't exist anymore. That world's gone.
Yeah. Because we're run by psychopaths. I mean, if you look at the people that we consider to be our heroes, they were all mass murdering dudes who, everyone else just want to get along. And this one guy, if we conquer that land, we shall be great. Everyone else, we got to kill. And the guy has to come up with an excuse why they need to be brought up to those extremes. Or people need to be put in those type of extremes.
I disagree a little bit that world is gone. I disagree with that a little bit. I actually think that we are told every day, and there is the attempt to convince us that world is gone, because I interact with too many just completely random people as the natural course of what I do. And my experience is similar to the man you described going, from Paris to India. My experience is that if I just talk to people, if I smile at the people and I just forthrightly say, here is the thing that I'm doing, or here's why I look the way I look, or whatever, they are kind and nice.
I appreciate that, but the difference is, when we're talking about the space of the earth that I'm speaking of, that world is gone. If you're an American hitchhiking by yourself right now through the Middle East, I don't think you're going to make it to India.
Okay. That might be true. That is probably very true. I won't argue that.
But I still think SisterDanger is hitting onto something, though.
Yeah, she's got a good point. I mean, the whole world isn't like that. Thank goodness. I agree.
You guys know who Henry Rollins is, right?
A what?
Yeah,
the comedian,
is, right?
Mm-hmm. Musician, comedian.
Musician. So now I've seen him. You can see a lot of his spoken word on YouTube, and I've seen him in person a few times. Now he's an American, and he goes. Basically, his attitude is if someone tells him he shouldn't go there, that's a bad place to go. That's where he goes. He's been in Korea. He's been to all these the deep dark recesses. And so he goes there, and he said, usually what happens when people see him, they're more shocked, like, what are you doing here? They don't know who he is. If they see an American and they're like, dude, well, you're by yourself. And he was actually in India when Benazir Bhutto was assassinated.
Ooh.
And he started going down this one way, and people were like, dude, no, don't go that way. And he's like, no, I have to go down that way now because that's the way I need to go. But he said basically, yeah, like SisterDanger said, when you approach people with that openness and everything that most people, and even as we're talking about, we talk about obviously that this right wing it's kind of the lizard brain. We're humans. We all have that lizard brain, the reptilian brain underneath the mammalian brain.
Yeah.
Even within their group, they could be lovely, wonderful people within their group.
Yeah.
And they'll sacrifice and they'll do all these things. It's just that they have that projection, that the unknown, and that's why obviously one of the big things is based on race. They see a black person, our facial features are different, we're darker, and we look strange, and or that Asian person or whatever, and they'll see that, and their response, and they've done studies on this, the response is to clench up, and the sad part is how much of it is a self-fulfilling prophecy, because obviously there's equality in the justice system, which ends up with black people and white people commit crimes at about the same rates. It's 0.56 per 100,000 or something like that, or 0.4 per 10,000. And yet, because we get arrested more, charged more, convicted more, serve longer sentences, we have a disproportionate presence in jail. So then they look at that as evidence. We'll see black people are 1/3, they're only 13% of the population and the 39% of the jail population. So see, they commit crimes 3 times more often, and we don't. But they use that as evidence.
Math is a thing. It's real. It exists.
Yeah, but again, remember what I said before about the logical part and the quickly to jump part. Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Right. Come on, confirmation bias.
But and also that fear that you're talking about. I was just about to throw in Lovecraft all over again. That's the reason.
Yeah.
I love reading Lovecraft.
Yay!
What you love reading? You know how much of it? Yeah, I find it fascinating. If you want, first of all, I just love the horror aspect of it. It's in the writing of it. It's very well done in that aspect. I mean, if you're just gonna take it at first value, you see. yeah, Lovecraft, Lovecraft, Conan, all this old stuff I read. But anyway, the thing I find fascinating.
The house that he lived in before he died.
Oh,
I might have been to the place that he's buried. I might have collected articles from that house, like dirt and apple seeds from the apple tree that was in the backyard.
You know, we live in the same state. We might have to, maybe might have to meet up. But the one thing I was going to say is the thing I find really fascinating about Lovecraft, besides just it's because people are like, man, he is so really good at capturing the fear of the unknown. I'm like, you look at his life. If you want to get an idea of what a racist is thinking deep down inside, read Lovecraft. This is what they thought.
Yeah.
And that all of his paranoid fears of the other are right there on the page. He just changed them to monsters and otherworldly, strange religions of dark, twisted people. I mean, this is what it is.
One thing that you said earlier that made me really think, and something conclusion I've come to some time ago, that because I remember I got into an argument with some right-wing dude, and it wasn't too heated, but he was just like, because I'm not a big pro-gun person. I don't think they should be banned, but I also think they should be heavily restricted. And I live in one of the most gun restrictive states in the country, and I'm happy about that. The person was like, well, how are you going to defend yourself if you don't have an arsenal? And I'm like, well, first off, even in New Jersey with all the restrictive laws, I could literally have, I figured it out. I could own 700 handguns now if I had wanted them. But I said, I'm 51 and I have never, ever needed to shoot anybody. Not once, not even vaguely. And if I had it would have been wrong. I can tell you right now, anytime I would have had the urge to shoot somebody, I would have been in the wrong, and I'd be doing a 15 spot right now. So I'm glad that they're not so easy to get. But I said to him, and I said, well, what kind of world do you live in? And I really started to think in the way they project. And I realized they do, even though they project this era of the tough guy, it's all an act. They really live in fear. They really live in the idea that the world is a dangerous, dark, dirty place, and you have to be packing or else you're in imminent danger to go buy toilet paper when it's not in the middle of an epidemic.
And remember, this is supposed to be even with this crazy COVID thing going on, this is the United States. This is not Beirut.
Right.
But they still believe that. In fact, I was like even saying that, like, for those one gun guy that I probably shouldn't have told him this, but it scared him even more. He's like, I need, and this was in Indiana. He's like, I need to, because, in Indiana, it's like, the guy had a freaking arsenal in his basement. And it's just like, I got all these guns and all this and all that, and it's to protect myself. And I'm like, and you feel you need to have this stuff strapped to you just for going to the groceries. And he was like, well, you never know. I said, and you never know in a suburban white neighborhood.
But I will tell you that using a knife to kill somebody is way more effective than a gun. They're definitely more likely to die.
But the point I was going to say, so that you are living in, at the moment, one of the safest countries in the world with a ridiculously strong military and an overactive police force, and you still feel the need to have your own weaponry in case somebody comes after you in a safe neighborhood where none of the crime you were terrified of that you blame a certain group of people for even living in.
One word, my friend.
So,
triage.
Well, and
I said that, do you know what this means, right? What? It means your society is breaking down. You're going to need those guns a lot sooner than you think.
And ironically, the only person he's really in danger of is another guy just like him.
Yeah, just like him.
Right.
Yeah. The thing is, their own fear is breaking down their own society. If you feel safe in your own society, you won't feel the need to be strapped. You only feel the need to carry weapons around you if you do not have faith in your society.
Right. I've spent 25 to 30 days in England. In fact, one of the times I got to meet Paul in person. That was great. And so I spent, and now obviously the cops aren't generally, strapped. In the airport they are, but pretty much nowhere else. And in that 30 days, I rarely saw cops at all. And at no time did I ever feel in danger whatsoever. It was refreshing, actually. It was like, wow, I'm just here, and I'm not in danger, and from the citizens nor the cops.
This is something I'll say about that, because I've lived here for 30 years, obviously, and I can appreciate in America the Second Amendment and its history and why people like their guns. I come from a gun family, right? I used to have guns when I was young. But living in this country and being able to have that feeling that you just described makes me feel freer. Because if you're free from fear, you're so much freer.
Thank you.
You're so much freer.
True.
I mean, it's just true. So,
but I mean, there's also, to be fair, the gun thing, yes, is linked to fear. And as somebody pointed out in the chat, it's also linked to the American identity of freedom, even though the whole thing is a myth. Sure. It's another propaganda myth. But I think another thing that's tied to is, and let's be honest, it's also tied to a concept of masculinity. There is a major masculine problem going on in this country, in the Western world, because of shifts in society, which are natural. People don't seem to realize that the more knowledge you learn, there's a lot about ourselves we still don't either know or are unwilling to know. And the more we discover about ourselves and what it means to be human, the more our concepts of what it means to be a human being shift. That also has to do with gender as well. These gender shifts and what it means to be a man or a woman or whatever in between, whatever concept you want to come up with, is now being brought into question, which in a thinking society, this is the sort of thing that would happen. But if you were raised in a strict sort of way where this is what it means to be a man, and then that's being questioned, and you don't have any alternative, or you are married to that particular idea, you're going to cling to it just a little bit tighter, because it's what gets you to get up in the morning and tie your shoes and stuff. It's the same thing with when you rip out it's like the same thing with a religious person when you rip out when you start attacking their faith. It's what gets them up in the morning. It's what gives them a reason to live.
Well, the irony to me, though, about how the gun is seen as
green machine
is because, again, it to me, if you want to associate, because we, not that we should, but we do associate masculinity with toughness and ruggedness and being fearless. Well, to me, the fearless guy is not the one who hides behind an arsenal of weapons. The guy walks, hey, I'm not worried about anything, man. And here's the other thing too. I always love how a lot of their arguments kind of are self-refuting, because I got into an argument with somebody who basically said that they didn't feel there should be a limitation on how many weapons you have, because their point is you can only shoot one or at most two. You have two handguns, so you can't be more dangerous than two guns. So, but see, the thing is that I said, well, but that works the other way around, because if you can't use more than two weapons, then why do you need more?
You need them. And then there's also another fundamental thing that I need to throw this out here before I leave, because my time's almost running out. And I feel bad that we haven't really talked about COVID that much, but I think we touched on the subjects around it enough.
Yeah, that's good.
The thing that cracks me up the most about this whole gun thing is the fact that all the guys who are strapping themselves down believe that that's all it takes for them to be ready for any situation. I'm a martial artist, and I can tell you that most of the population are dead if they ever put in that particular situation. I don't care how many guns they have.
Right.
No matter what they think, no matter what they got strapped to them, no matter how much they went over the weekend to the shooting range, the one thing these guys don't seem to freaking understand is that ambushes work for a reason. If you are not aware that danger is about to occur, when it comes upon you, all you can do is beg for your life or run. There's a reason why military guys, guys who've seen combat or dealt with this sort of situation, when they're in a public place, they pick where they're going to sit. They're constantly looking around, watching the area, because they're now trained to look for trouble.
Right.
And the minute they see even the beginnings of the sign of it, they're ready to move.
Right.
The average dude with a gun who thinks that he's Superman because he's taken a couple of lessons and watched a couple of videos is not that individual.
Right.
And I can tell you, once someone gets the drop on you, whether they have a gun or a knife, it doesn't matter what you have in your pocket, you're fucked.
Well, one thing kind of along those lines, and I realized where the mindset comes from in modern times anyway, or at least part of it. Because again, growing up in New Jersey, I mean, yeah, there are people who have guns, people who hunt, but guns here are very much more utility. You can't, you can't buy more than 2 handguns a month because you have that permit, you have firearm ID card to do that, and all this. So, and you can't hunt with a rifle because if a 30 caliber round will go half a mile, and that's in somebody's house in New Jersey. So, the mindset's very different. But I was watching this show, and it was about the last, it was like the last gasp of the Cowboys, of the actual Cowboys, the Rustlers, the Raiders, and all this kind of stuff. And there was this group of brothers, and they went into this town, it was in Kansas or somewhere in the Midwest, and they went to rob the bank. And they botched it, and then the citizens rose up, and they got some weapons from the gun store. Mind you, they didn't actually have them. They actually had to get them, but they went and got weapons. And then the citizens actually stopped because there wasn't really any law in the town, because it was, it's a frontier town. So there wasn't a lot of law. So, and I realized, and they're like, oh, and this story is told every year in school. And I'm like, oh, so yeah, if you grow up with people telling you about how the citizens rose up and saved the town and fought off the criminals, well, that's going to work on your psyche, because then everyone's, I can be that guy. I'm going to be the guy who saved the town. Of course, like you said, unless you're trained for that, you're going to be a victim, more than likely than not. And it's weird, because my thing is, I'm like, you can own whatever, so you show some competency and some training. Otherwise, you're going to be a liability, and you're probably going to get shot by the cops for
exactly. And that they don't understand the reality of the situation. It's like, is she trying to? Sister, if you're trying to speak, you're muted.
No, she's not muted in the program.
Now?
I think
now I can hear you.
Okay.
But
no,
there you go.
Oh,
so
I'm
with, muted. Go ahead.
I'm with you. I've done some martial arts. I mean, I'm not like a black belt or anything like that, but I've had some martial arts training in my past. I actually quite love it, both for the psychology and for the actual martial artsiness of it. But I'm with you. I think that anybody that has had any kind of training, whether that's martial arts, whether that's military, whatever it is, whether you're just a gun enthusiast and you've had to, get your concealed carry license and go through training, anybody that's had any kind of training, I think it's the ones that don't have the training, that have no real concept of how
I mean, that's why anybody that has training is like, rule number 1, if you can run away, run away, because that is the best way to survive, right? Like, engaging in the combat is always bad. Like, and
that's the last option.
Even the freaking book of war, the freaking art of war says the best way to fight is not the freaking fight. All the old ones is like, if you can find a way to deal with this situation without damage, that's the one you do. It's the fool that thinks, well, the damage is the first option. And as much as some people are going to say that, well, what about the responsible ones? What about the responsible gun owners? What about the responsible ones? They're the ones who follow that rule.
Exactly.
You can't put them in the same frame. I'm saying this right now because I just saw this in the chat, and it's this sort of thing that pisses me off as somebody who knows some combat stuff and who's been around military guys. Combat awareness, understanding dangerous situations means not being in that situation to begin with or preventing it from happening. And the shootings and all the things that have happened. In fact, this COVID situation started because of a lack of awareness. This is now damage control.
Right.
This is no longer dealing with the problem. The best example I can give, and the type of BS excuse that pisses me off, there was like a couple of years ago, there was like, and for a while, the gun nuts were showing this as this great example of this guy who came into a church and shot a bunch of people up. And then one of the guys in the church was able to shoot that dude. And everyone was talking about how great that story was. Like the guy came in and he was gunning people down. And this dude, because he was strapped, he was able to shoot him and stop the bad guy. There's a couple of details that were left out. One, the guy was still able to get into the church and shoot people. That means he got the drop on them.
Right.
Second, people died. You didn't stop the shooting. That's a failure. 3, the one who ended up stopping him had to chase him down in a car chase in a different freaking location to then gun him down. This is reality.
Right.
Combat reality. There's a reason why, for example, numbersing is a single individual. The numbers usually win every time. Isn't this what the MMA guys talk about when you talk about the traditional martial artists? Who's like, I think my Tai Chi is going to be able to beat 20 guys at once. No, the 20 guys at once is going to kick your crap in. There's certain realities of combat that people need to freaking understand. I'm sorry.
Well, that's one of the good stuff you said about the details, because it's what's funny. Years ago, a friend of mine, well, former friend now, but a guy he was big NRA guy, big arsenal of weapons, and he was very pro NRA. And I said finally to him, and he was always trying to get me to convince me that the NRA wasn't a bunch of scumbags. So so I finally said I was over his house and he had this big stack of NRA magazines. I said, how about this? Let me borrow like 6 issues. This way, rather than get your take on the NRA, rather than so you're pro NRA, rather than get the take of the person who hates the NRA, let me read what the NRA has to say about themselves, and from their own publication, and I'll get a better feel for what they're really all about. So in every issue, there's a few articles of like someone who supposedly defended their home or defended their workplace with their firearm, right? And assuming that any of these stories are actually true. But I tend to think a lot of them are. The reason why, because it's kind of comical to me, is that in over half of the stories I read, and again, this is 6 months worth of issues, probably 12 to 15 incidents, at least one person who lived in the house got shot by a friendly weapon. So I'm like, so thinking about it, well, this is the NRA promoting this as this is a success. This is going to be their best. They're not going to put the ones that ended horribly. They're going to put the ones that ended the best and most favorable from their view. And I'm like, this is the most favorable examples you have where half the people in the story get shot, mostly by friendly fire. Like, that's a success to you? Wow, you guys are really, really up. You're even more than I thought.
And again, this is me. My perspective is somebody who owns weapons. I'm not against people owning weapons. I'm sorry, I'm not. I mean, just as somebody who believes that everybody should be able, I personally believe that everyone should know how to defend themselves. I mean, the minute you're able to walk, I think you should at least be able to put them in a freaking horse stance. You have to give them some condition just for health reasons. People should be able to defend themselves somehow. But
that's kung fu right there.
Yeah. Well, that's my background. But you also have to teach combat, and you also like danger. Let's just simply say danger. Forget just combat, just danger, period. Things that can harm you. Yeah. Whether it be somebody's fist, a bullet, or a freaking microbe. When you're teaching danger to people, you have to teach them effective ways to deal with it. The number one effective way of dealing with it is not putting yourself in that situation. If you can't be in that situation, then you need to find a way to nullify that situation from damaging you. If you can't do that, then everything else you're doing is damage control.
Right.
That's the reality. Right. If you can't be out of that area that's causing damage and you can't nullify the damage from happening, you're in damage control. And that means you're going to get damaged.
Right.
Yep. When you start dealing with lethal elements, this is when you're going to start talking about being crippled or loss of lives.
Right.
This is the sort of thing that I'm noticing is not being spoken about in the gun debate, no matter what side you're on. And that's what really pisses me off. The reality of situations where you are in danger. If you are not aware of something that's coming at you, you're going to get affected. And at that point, the only thing that's going to keep you from being completely killed is if you weren't hit first. And if you have enough training to get yourself out of that situation, be able to fight back. But again, if you get jumped on, whether by bullets, whether by knives, whether by micros, whatever, if you're not aware that it's happening, you're already got. That's the reality. It doesn't matter. I could have as much vitamin C in my pocket as I want. If I'm not taking it to keep out, to boost up my immune system, I'm still getting hit. And look, vitamin C isn't going to help you against certain microbes anyway, because if I don't have the right immunities, I'm going to get hit.
Right.
I may have all the guns that I want, and I may be able to, I know how to point my gun, and I know I'm not supposed to point at anyone that I'm not willing to destroy. I have my seat facing the front of the door. I'm looking out for any particular thing. But all it takes is for me to look down and slurp my suit. Look back up, the guy in the AK is already in there. These things happen.
Right.
This is something that a lot of the guys with the freaking, they got that image in their head that they're the new Rambo of the 21st century. No, this is not. People who've been in combat, people who've been in real fighting situations know how touch and go these things can be, which is why they get trained to either not be in those situations or nullify the situations before they start.
I just want to give a good example of that in a real world setting. I went from fantasy to reality. So when I was in high school, I played. My friends and I, we played this game called Twilight 2000. It's like a World War III post-apocalyptic. You're members of the military, and your unit's been destroyed, and you're trying to survive in wartime Poland. So before my friends went off to war, these guys were doing the fantasy thing. They got three handguns and 2 rifles and 15 grenades and all this kind of crap. Then they go in the army and they actually get trained. And then they come back and we decide, hey, we haven't played, let's play Twilight 2000. So we break out the stuff and they look at their characters and they see this ridiculous arsenal that they're all carrying. And they're like, and they just took erasers out and they're just scratching off all the excess bullshit. They all pare down to 1 rifle, 1 sidearm, 2 grenades, it's 6 magazines, that's it. Because they're like, yeah, more than that. And if the fight's bigger than that, you need to be DD out. You got to DD out because you're in deep shit.
Yeah. Like, that's reality. There's only so much you can do.
But that's the trouble with ideologies in general, is the fact that they're never truly based on reality. They're based on an idea of what the reality will be. And that reality is never going to match that idea, because that idea is set up for you to be the hero. It's self-mind. That's in the whole world is not. So that's going to always be a problem when having discussions, especially when it comes to things like gun control, or going all the way back to when we started this conversation, the idea that you guys were saying that people have never been in that world where they have to defend themselves and they have these thoughts. But you believe they're in that world where they believe they're already in a Mad Max world. Right. It doesn't click to them that, hey, wait a minute, you're not doing that thing right now. You're walking into a store buying things still. That you're not there. I know, and I tend to be I can't say I'm a prepper, but I tend to like to try to have things around just in case. Mm-hmm. And even when this stuff started happening and people started buying out, they started buying out toilet paper and a ton of stuff, I still was like, I'll be able to get that at some point. I'm not gonna, literally, I was able to get that stuff. I'm like, at some point, people make that stuff. They're going to want to make money on that stuff. They'll make more of it to meet the need.
Right.
And so I just like, we found toilet paper at a gas station simply because nobody had thought, hey, get toilet paper. We were going to get gas.
Yeah,
I just looked up and there it is. It's like
rolls.
literally in the window.
Wow.
I know, right? I know it's like a buck a roll or something, but still, you know, when there's none on the shelves, it's a good deal.
It's not even even like a 1-ply 1,000-sheet roll. It's like you know.
Half a ply.
No, we got Scott, which is not in my mind the best, but
it's also not the worst. Like, it's not Walmart brand, but it's also not Charmin. Extra fluffy.
Cottonelle is the best.
Wait, say it again.
Why we're arguing about the best toilet paper?
Nathan, what's it like in Chicago right now? Are
Scott,
you playing with the lockdown?
What's it like here?
Yeah, what's it like there? Is society like carrying on more or less?
Bad, I would say. They're staying. People are pretty much staying in. I mean, I have to go out at least once a week, but the streets aren't crowded or anything. It's weird to see because, especially you go to downtown Chicago, and the traffic is. I mean, you're talking like around. I think SisterDanger brought up like a rush hour. Like you go downtown rush hour, and it's like the streets are just there. A few cars just driving on the street. That's something like I've never seen. Even on the weekend, there's still people. You know, there's still a lot of traffic and stuff. But no, people are actually staying in. Even McDonald's has like different hours. McDonald's were like, you know, they were staying open, but they weren't letting you sit down and stuff like that.
Yeah, you got to go to the drive-thru.
They have their own hours.
Yeah, that's in most places. That's in most places.
We should go.
Oh my God! What?
How are you guys doing?
Oh, Brock.
What happened?
Doing all right.
Man, it is good to see you, Guy. How are you doing?
Good. How's everybody hanging in there? Pretty good? Taking care of each other?
Hanging in there. Well, I want to talk about my side. See, I'm located here in Michigan, and one of the articles that have come out is they're now going to start clamping down on people, and depending on the communities, give them $1,000 fine if they disobey the orders now.
Oh, you can just get a government check to it. You should be good, right?
Well, that's true. That's true. Well, part of it, and I don't know if you see this where you're located, people think they can go on into these parks and they get into, and it becomes crowded. I've seen signs, somebody posted up that there's a sign where they're now saying that, no, you can't go there. Bet they're taking hoops out of basketball courts down in Detroit now because they don't want everybody. I'm not kidding you. They're really clamping down on this. And we are like maybe third in the country now as far as cases are concerned. We're like maybe over 10 or 11,000 at the moment here.
Yeah, I saw that. It was looking pretty bad.
Yeah, it is.
Our mayor had to stop. Our mayor had to stop people from, like she said, she was on her way to work and she was seeing just people out in the park just chilling, and she's like, "What the hell is happening?"
It's the idea of social distancing. It's like, come on.
You're right. She had to tell people, "No, we're closing the park." Like we got an emergency thing on the phone, like the emergency alert. It's like, okay, the parks are closed. Everything is closed. Don't go here.
But can I tell you something that I find weird, that I have found weird, speaking of the closure of the things? Right before the show, I went out and walked my cat because that's right, my cats go on leashes. And so I was walking the cat and only bumped into like one other couple and we were like this down the sidewalk. Like, I'm just going to step off onto the road. We'll maintain our 6-foot distance. But one of the things, kind of behind the whole complex where I live is this place in the city that they call the Jungle. And it's actually this big wooded area that like bums and drug addicts live
off in this, and I've never been back there. But today I kind of went and walked around, and I was walking back there because I've never been back there before, and it was actually pretty scary. There was like needles and stuff on the ground. It was like freaky. Yeah, it was bad. So, but my point is that when I was back there, there was nobody. And then I started looking, and I was like, actually, none of the homeless people that are like, there's no one on the corners anywhere, like not just like, but none. And I'm like, where are the homeless people right now? Like all of them, where are they? Because they're all gone, and that is creeping me out a little bit. I'll be honest. We're all stuck inside. Sure. We cannot see what's happening outside, and suddenly all the homeless people are gone.
I will say that where I'm at, they're still around.
You still,
but they're like in the corner somewhere, but they're still around.
Well, I heard in San Francisco that apartment buildings that were.
It's been nice to see that when you go into Target, they wipe the cart handle down for you. That's always nice.
Yes.
SisterDanger here in London, the hotels, because the hotels haven't got any business, so the government's made the hotels put up the homeless.
Yeah, I heard that's what they were doing in San Francisco or in California as well. Yeah, I don't know that that's happened here, but maybe it is, and I just don't know it because I'm, quarantined.
Yeah.
So, and I confess to not looking, having my eyes glued to the news because one, I can't stand the press conferences every single day. I'm ready to join the NRA, and after watching them, just
those press conferences are pure propaganda. I mean, they're the worst propaganda I've ever seen. In fact, at least I should rephrase that. It's the worst live TV propaganda.
I'd like to think that propaganda is at least, it's at least intentionally manufactured. I don't feel like the press conferences even qualify as that. They are absolutely bonkers. The things that come out of the mouth are.
I agree. It's hard to watch. It's literally hard to watch. Sometimes I just have to turn them off. But maybe I overspoke. Maybe what I didn't mean it that way. Maybe what I should say is they're like political infomercials. That's what.
God. No, you're right at first. They're propaganda.
Yeah,
100% propaganda. you were 100% right at first.
I feel concerned about the fact that all of those people have to get together, so they have to be present physically in order to vote. So a bunch of them are still running around Washington D.C. and RNC and all that. This coming up. All those people are there, and how is it that like two of them? I mean, Rand Paul and two of them out of all of them have caught the coronavirus. I mean, I just don't understand that, right? They're all within like the most dangerous demographic, and yet somehow they are also the safest.
They'll probably stay in a lot already.
Oh, they probably got
in a lot anyway.
Oh yeah, I'm doing this quarantine. It sucks. But I guess if I really want to get outside, I can walk to the pool. In my backyard.
I just found it funny because he was somebody just hours earlier was arguing, the whole hoax line and the whole voting against things, and it's like, maybe that wasn't a good vote.
I had a guy back at the beginning.
I don't want bad things to happen to anybody, but if bad things are going to happen, I'd rather have it happen to the people who either cause it to happen or do everything they can to stop the rest of us from preventing them from happening or fixing it. So it's like, all right, well, I really wanted everybody to be safe, but if you're going to make it so that some people are not going to be safe, I hope it's you and not the rest of us.
Yeah, sure.
So that is such a fascinating. Like that right there, though, that mindset, I find very fascinating. Because it is that mindset that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that while every human life in an objective universe, I guess, has the same value equal to other human lives, we as people do not value each other equally, and we should not pretend that we do. If you have to be stuck with somebody
we
in
make
the
value
zombie
judges in a minute.
apocalypse. Well, because the premise of so many of our laws, right, is that every life is equally valuable. But then you look at things like insurance companies, right, and how is it that insurance companies determine what your life insurance rate is going to be, right? They straight up are like, well, you're X old, you smoked for 50,000 years, you whatever, your insurance is going to be really high, and your life isn't that valuable. Congratulations. In fact, you're only worth about $25,000 as a human being right now. I mean, they've literally broken it down. Like, terrible.
Yeah. It's true. It is true.
Well,
but it's like so many people want to pretend that we don't do that. No, everybody's life is equally valuable, but we are literally in a situation now where even the most tree hugging, sweater knitting hippie people out there are like, actually, if somebody has to get it, I hope that it's the head Cheeto in charge or whatever, like
George Carlin's sanctity of life. This is George Carlin's sanctity of life at work right now.
Yeah.
Really.
I feel like I need to just go look that up, because if for no other reason than watching more George Carlin is pretty much always good.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, right.
The end of it was perfect when he was talking about, like, even the stuff we preach about. The part that cracks me up the most, he goes, the stuff we preach about sanctity of life, we don't practice it. So look at what we kill. Mosquitoes and flies, because we're pests. Lions and tigers, because it's fun. Chickens and pigs, because we're hungry. Pheasants and quails, because it's fun and we're hungry. And people, we kill people because they're pests and it's fun. As simplistic as that is, it's sadly true. So, but yeah, I just find all of this happening right now, and also what's also eerie about this is, remember his jokes about, soon you guys are going to be hit with a great deal of entertainment. He said this in the 90s. Actually. People like quoting him saying that in the 2000s, when the 2000s, when the aughts hit. No, he was saying this since 1993, 1994, saying that the news is going to get a lot more entertaining, folks. And now, I mean, I'm pretty sure people will be like, that's in bad taste. This is not entertaining. If you're detached like me, yeah, it is. It's frustrating, but still entertaining.
Have you ever seen the movie Network come out in like 1975 or 76?
Yeah.
Yes, and I know about the rant.
It's not just the rant though. It's the whole premise of the movie. Basically, like you're just saying, it's like, this is what's coming. This is an entertainment are going to merge to the point where someone's going to get killed on camera for fucking ratings. and that's pretty. We're like literally slivers away from that right now. I mean, they fucking do that in China, don't they? Don't they have public executions on TV in China? I'm pretty sure.
Oh my God, do they really?
I think so.
I think it's the Middle East, but still.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure. I could be exposed to propaganda for all I know, but because I've
Hold
never.
on for a second.
Right?
We have an answer box for a reason.
That is, I didn't know that, and I find that very shocking. We used to do that over, I guess, in Western Europe in the Dark Ages.
Well, literally for all of human history until about 50 years ago. Until about 50 years ago. Until about 50 years ago, the entire point of executions was that they were public, because that was the whole deterrent argument of an execution. An execution isn't really a deterrent if nobody sees it fucking happen.
Right.
Well, so you fucking town square where you bring your kids to watch, you throw fucking bread and vegetables at the guy, and then they fucking pull the floor out from under him, and he dangles there for a minute struggling, and then you fucking walk away and go home. And
here you go, guys.
You're totally right. In fact, part of it, not only is it the fact that they're killing the person, but the idea was to literally humiliate them too.
Exactly.
I mean,
that's what being in stocks is all about.
Is that actually true? So I mean, there's always what people think, and then there's, like, when you study group psychology, oftentimes it's actually excuse me, different. And I'm curious actually if as to
Well, and
how,
it's just,
whether or not that's true, like the death penalty has less to do with the death and more to do with basically scaring the onlookers.
I think for people who believe in the death penalty, it's like a three-fer. You're removing the you're removing the danger from society. Yeah, you're I suppose what's getting justice or revenge for the victim. Yeah, and you're scaring the fuck out of people into submission, into the fear that you don't want this happening to you. So it's a three-fer.
Well,
you know, that's why public execution has been the norm for all of human history.
Right.
Yeah, we have at least 4
they realize
countries
that you can't really make a civilized argument for executions, and that's why now they're behind closed doors in Western countries. Well, in Western countries, there's only one Western country that really practices, and that's America, really. So,
well, and a good example of again, as it's used as an intimidation and a fear tactic. Look at lynchings. You know, there's over 4,000 documented lynchings, and we know that there's more that we just don't have. You know, we can't have put.
And again, there would have been fucking in lots of those cases, there would have been people cheering it on.
Absolutely.
It would have been a spectacle. It's not just something that you're going to do with 1 or 2 friends because you didn't like this person for whatever reason. No, you're going to make a spectacle of it because that's how you all. It's like a bonding experience for these fuckers. You know,
in fact, for lynching, there's actually pictures that people took of the crowds around the dead bodies hanging from the trees.
Yeah, I've seen some.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Brock, you've not said anything yet.
Oh, first of all, is everything?
How can that be?
How you doing, Paul? Good to see you, man.
Right.
Looks like you're doing well. Is everything working, by the way? Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh no, man! I just jumped in. I just wanted to get my bearings on the conversation. So where are you all at? I know Nathan's in Chicago and you're in London, right, buddy?
Yeah.
How about everybody else? Where are you guys?
Seattle. Essentially Seattle. Yeah.
New Jersey. Close to New York City.
Yeah, I'm also in Washington. I live close to Olympia.
And Sue's off the screen at the moment, but she's in Michigan.
I'm in PA. By the way, did coming on? Did I boot her off or something?
No. We've only got 6 slots, and there's more than 6. I'm rotating people in and out, and if someone doesn't say something for very long, I bump them and put someone else.
I understand.
I'll leave myself off, that kind of thing.
That's East, West, or Central PA.
I'm actually right outside of Hershey, Pennsylvania. You know where that is? Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's kind of untouched so far for the most part. We got hospitals all over the place in this area, and my friends all work at them. We got like 4 cases, you know, in all the hospitals total. So I don't know where that compares to everybody else's footprint, but we're hunkered down, but it's not really, you know, there's just not much action going on here, I guess, or something.
Yeah, we've actually had hospital closures because they're just full. So
really,
yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Same here.
So,
yep.
So you're on the west coast though, right?
Yes. Yeah. We're basically ground zero out here because this is where it started. So the first one that came in, I think I was saying earlier, was up in Snohomish, which is technically where I'm at because I'm a little bit north of Seattle. But then from there, it was down in the Kirkland, Kent, down towards where Swordsage is, and then just kind of went outwards from there. We actually don't have the highest reported cases because both Washington and Oregon have been really on top of taking action about it, but it's still pretty crazy. We still, are seeing the streets that are just empty and, grocery stores that just have the people looking for beans and rice. Like,
really?
Oh yeah, it's kind of fun. Like I go out to supplement income because I'm terrified of having to pay rent and then not having any money or something like that. I'm super terrified of it. So I've been supplementing income by grocery driving, like picking up groceries for other people. And
wow.
I just laugh when I see people. They're like, "Oh, I'd like 3 bags of rice," and I'm like, "Good luck."
Good freaking luck.
Is that right?
I've been looking for rice like crazy for the past few days.
Nothing. No black beans, no brown beans, no nothing. Anything that's like a dried good like that, rice, whatnot. It's just if you aren't there at butt crack
I gotta show
dawn
this
in the
to you.
morning, it's gone.
Gone.
Yeah.
I gotta
And
show this to you here. Look at this.
They're
This
not
is the
fake
bath
pictures,
tissue
man.
aisle.
They're real.
Jeez.
This is the bath tissue aisle, and basically they put chairs there where the empty shelves were.
Wow.
This is at a local Kroger.
No,
Bath
it's
tissue,
just-
facial tissues right there.
That's crazy.
Sister, it could not be more different here. I mean, you go into the grocery store and it's completely unchanged. It's really wild. Like it's just the country is just so vast. I guess there's just such a difference in the suburban areas, but there's this, the grocery stores are completely stocked. Hearing that is just wild.
Well, now that you've said it out line on the interwebs,
I'm driving to Hershey. I'm on the way. I'll be there in a few hours.
I mean, I'm not kidding. It's wild. Like it's not like, there's just, I mean, we did have a toilet paper thing that was real odd, but nothing else. I can't wrap my mind around why that was the
I can
chosen board.
actually. Okay, I got something on there. I can tell you about this. Basically, it's kind of started with a rumor that happened on Twitter, and it's also happened in Japan as well. Where they're saying there's a shortage because there were toilet paper coming from China. It was being imported or some kind of bullshit like that. And so, like in Japan, for example, they did the same thing. They ran it out and all that stuff. And the company in Japan that made toilet paper said, wait a minute, we got this handled. They put a bunch up there and built onto the shelves. And I'm like, okay, so we're covered. Nothing's happened here, but we do have a toilet paper factory in America. But it started by a simple, stupid rumor on Twitter.
First of all, I'm just saying, time to get a bidet. And second of all, there are so many things I can think to use other than toilet paper. But you know what I would miss? I don't want to get gross on you guys, but tampons. I'm telling you, like that is the thing that I would miss.
Right.
Like way worse without those than without toilet paper.
Well, you guys know the True Puka?
Yeah.
He actually works for me. So I see him. Well, I don't see him every day now, but normally I would see him every day. But he made a joke at work just before we shut the office down. He's like, as long as there's coffee filters, we're okay.
I know, right?
Right.
Because we serve two purposes, the little double entendre there.
Serious, what do you do for a living?
I am an engineer, and I have my own automation and control engineering firm.
Wow. That's awesome. You have quite a few employees then. You're in a conundrum with this whole thing then, right?
Yeah, and what's the thing? I mean, unfortunately, the timing is such that we're finishing up. We just finished up a couple big projects. We have another big project that's getting clear the end, and all the stuff we were expecting to come in the short term is being delayed. So we're going to be hitting a spot where there's just not going to be any work.
Right.
And that's actually one thing that Philip's working on is that thankfully one of our lenders, one of our banks, contacted us and was telling us about the SBA loan as part of that huge, $2 trillion package.
Mm-hmm.
They're basically doing these loans for small business,
right?
And they're for two. One, so you can cover your payroll, and two, what they're trying to do is they don't want people to lay. They don't want you to take the money and then lay everybody off. So if you get the loans and they'll cover like 2.5 months, 3 months worth of payroll. If you keep everybody through the period, there's actually going to be a loan forgiveness, and up to 75% of the loan can just be like it's yours. You don't have to pay it back. So that's the kind of stuff that'll save small businesses like mine. Because now the thing is we have bid on a bunch of water treatment plant jobs that were pending. So those may come forward because water treatment is obviously an essential service. So if those happen sooner rather than later, then we'll be fine. But otherwise, we'll need the.
It's interesting. Is that something you guys have gotten into? Because I got a bunch of friends. So I'm the media director for a denomination, and serious, I know about that. It's the same type of situation where if you take the loan and you have the same personnel number, it doesn't even have to be the same personnel. It just has to be number. Right. It's a forgiveness. But I was thinking about like all the small businesses and like how long they can sustain. Like I'm real curious, and even like what's the line at which I'm just curious what you guys think about this. At which the shutdown of the economy like creates like another gangrene that creates like poverty and sickness. Do you know what I mean? Like you're like tightrope in this thing where, you obviously have to take this seriously, but the whole time you got this like triage thing going on over here, you might be creating like a whole nother world of problems for you. And have you guys kicked that around yet? Because it's
we haven't discussed it, but the thing about it though, here's the tough part. If it's kind of like what we're going through now, as hard as it is, and there's no doubt it's going to create some negative follow-on effects. That's unavoidable. But the problem is, if we don't, and we're not going to be talking about 200,000 dead, we're going to be talking in the millions. And at that point, the economy, all the economy effects that we're worried about will still happen, and it'll be worse. So it's a matter of like, we got to swallow the bitter pill. It's kind of like, the medication may taste bad, but the disease will kill you. So
you kind of need people alive in order to maintain an economy. Especially in this.
Where's the end game? Like, where's the end game, Sword? Like, in my mind, like, I'm thinking I could get on board like a lot more if they were like, here's the date, right? You know what I mean? But they just have this. Bear in mind, I'm a very libertarian person. I distrust power just in general. So I'm just thinking to myself, like, the Leviathan that this creates for the powerful over the weak, this is disturbing for me. Put the disease aside, right? Yeah. But even still, the open-endedness of it all is just like that would make sense to me so much more if they were like, if they spoke in definitives, like, you know what I mean?
But how can you make definitives on something that they, all right, again, it's time for me to be the blunt person in the room. One, in this country right now, there's no plan, it's damage control. The plan that they were supposed to put in place, they're like, oh, we don't need no plan. Well, why do we need a plan? Now, all of a sudden in March, oh my God, we have a plan. It's damage control. And when you're in damage control, there is no definitive end date. And but here's the second thing. Even if there was a plan, this is a virus. I keep trying to explain this to people. This is a virus. This isn't some social crisis. This isn't a terrorist hit. This isn't an economic slump. This is a virus. There are no cures for viruses.
It's a force of nature.
Second, this is a new virus. There are very few people with antibodies. You want to get antibodies to be able to protect yourself from it? Walk outside for a little while, get the disease, and let's see how well you do. When you survive that, you'll have some antibodies for that strain. There's some new strains coming. It's going to hit in the fall. It's going to hit again next fall. It's going to hit again next winter.
But each time
this is with us. Now, if there was a proper plan in place, we'd probably be crippled for a little while. And then hopefully toward the end of the year, we'll find some way to live with it and find a way to come up with a new economy around that. But we're in damage control. They can't come up with a date. One, because they're too incompetent to come up with a proper date. And two, because the nature of this thing, you just got to hope that your damage control does just enough so that we're able to live with it. Now, some people might be thinking, well, this might happen in a year. This might happen in 2 years. Remember the AIDS epidemic.
Well, even better example, in a more recent too, and really kind of a similar thing. When the SARS came around a few years back, the difference was there was a response, a preemptive response. So we never got to the point where we're at now. But basically, this virus, COVID, is actually a SARS virus. It's a novel SARS virus. It's different than the others, but it's genetically related. So, but not close enough, unfortunately, to give us any antibodies. but that's the thing. So the thing is, and that shows the difference. Why, if we had taken action earlier, we wouldn't be in this situation, because we weren't the last time. But we waited and waited and waited, and we tried to pretend it wasn't a real thing. And now it's like you said, it's your damage control. It's too late. We've been shot. Now we.
Right. I wanted to make a point, but first I wanted Amy to jump in.
So I'm kind of curious because what Brock said, not liking the open-endedness of it. I sort of agree with I too am not a super fan of. I mean, I am, but I'm not when it comes to authority and power. Those things, but whatever. That's aside. I'm curious. So here we have been told we're going to be in lockdown for at least another month. They have at least given us the hard date of the end of April or May. Maybe it's May. That's it. But it seems to me like there is this part of my brain that says
that wonders, is this actually just the slow, calculated adjusting of society to become a more what do you call it? Not quarantine, but when it's the military martial law. Are we slowly taking baby steps towards martial law under the auspices of being protected for our own good from the them that is our corona enemy? And I actually think about that a lot. I think it's actually a really good question, because I was earlier when y'all were talking, I was sitting here thinking to myself, things are never, they can't, I don't see how things can possibly go back to what they were like a month ago in society. If this has done nothing else, it has demonstrated to all of America, at least, if not other people, other major countries where people are, that there are certain things that can and will in fact work. So, for example, working from home. How many people are now able to work from home, and that this mere being able to do will better their entire quality of life? That corporations have been making their employees come in unnecessarily when we have long since had the means and technology to let people work from home, to let people be with their families instead of spend 4 hours a day, times 5 days a week, traveling.
Which would take all the strain off the roads as well.
Takes the strain off the roads. It takes the strain off of, I'm one mother with 3 kids. One of them fell and broke their arm at the playground, and now I suddenly have to try to get all of my kids together to take the one to the emergency room, and some are getting out of school, or one of them's at soccer practice, but now I've got a second parent who, yes, working from home, but can say, well, I can work at 9 p.m. at night, and let's deal with this emergency right now, as opposed to not even having that option, right? I just don't see there's any way that we can go back to what it was, because now people are having this sort of renaissance of mind, but in that same way, though, in the more, we'll say pessimistic, right, viewpoint, what is our new normal going to look like? And are we taking little baby steps towards a subtle martial law, one that we become okay with? And because we have slowly become okay with it, nobody's challenging it, right? And it won't actually be an egregious thing until some person out there suddenly gets killed or shot or something in a weird situation. But as long as it can be contained, maintained, that can all become instituted. And if everybody is doing the social distancing and staying inside, and they're doing it of their own accord, there isn't a conflict there to highlight to everybody that, hey, guess what, guys? I hope you have a pass to go outside, because if not, these guys, have M14s or whatever, and they will gun you down.
Can I jump in real quick? Because I wanted to mention something that she was talking about, and what Brock originally said, which started this whole train off, which is, how long does this last and stuff, and also like you were just saying about how there's basically a potential for things to get a lot better, and what will the new normal be? Because the whether they get better or not is obviously partly up to us, but the things that aren't up to us are unfortunately the structural things, and the fact that in America, by the time we're done, we're probably going to have 20 million empty unemployed people, maybe more, right?
That is so many.
And
if you think about what that will do to the economy, Brock. What economy is there if you've got 20 million people out of work?
Exactly. Yeah.
People out of work.
Right.
You know what I mean? And because
it's universal basic income economy. That's what it is.
But for better or worse, in my opinion, for worse, ever since the 80s, America got away from being a production-based economy and has trickled into a service-based economy. And a service-based economy can only work where there's prosperity.
Right.
There's no prosperity. There's no consumption. If there's no consumption, the service sector can't function.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. You know, on a side note, the what you were talking about, the silver lining, sister, I thought about this. And of course, you know, all cards on the table, I welcome something like this. You probably already know this about me, but the education system. So I got all these friends that are now like, you know, stuck at home with their children. These were like two, you know, high income, you know, career first people. And now they're re-examining education at home with their children. And here's why, at least in our area, they're realizing the gaps that their children really have in their education because they were farming this out. So I wonder if you'll see a revolution with that too, just by way of how we approach educating our children and so many other things, right? We're just going to rethink so many different things. There's really an opportunity for wonderful things to happen here. In my opinion, it all hinges on, I mean, you have that kind of unemployment, and really what you're dealing with is an unprecedented amount of poverty, which, you know, and you tether that with what I think is the stage being set for authoritarianism like we've never seen before. And it's a checkmate situation too, because I'm a medical ignoramus. You know, I don't know anything. So I just have to swallow what these people say to me, regardless. You know, this is the one virus. What about the next one and the next one and the next one?
The next one.
You
think that they might try to use that kind of like a sort of like a new bugbear or a new bugbear to worry about?
I mean, I think like that anyway. I'm prone to conspiracies when it comes to powerful people because I just don't trust them. I'm not saying that it will all be nefarious, but I just think you don't have to look very far past, you know, in the past of these people's lives to see that they will subjugate people by any means necessary. And this is a checkmate because you're the guy that wants people to die if you don't get on board. You know what I mean? So it's really like you're just checkmate. You got to swallow it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm not. I mean, I've always had a problem with authority. Part of, even though I got heavily recruited by the military academies, other than the Marines, I didn't go because I knew my mouth would get me in trouble. Because I you know, even as a kid, I didn't handle authority well because I was smarter than most authority figures, and I had a hard time dealing with that. But, you know, the thing is that. You know, and it is that's the thing that's so frustrating about this whole thing, because I find, you know, again, the people that are most concerned, you know, obviously, Rock, you know, you're conservative, libertarian, they're the ones that are most worried about the potential impact of like martial law or something like it. But they're also the ones that are like ignoring have ignored the warnings and have helped perpetuate it. And that's the part that's been frustrating for me. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling. It's like, well, if people have listened early on, we wouldn't be in this horrible situation.
So I'm assuming you're alluding to, like, you know, I'm assuming when you say that, you mean people who are alluding to, in this particular case, the Trump's administration's authoritarian. Well, here's what I would say to that. I'm a libertarian, so I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you on that. And furthermore, what I think is frustrating is no matter who's in power, my right-wing friends are always quick to oversee or overlook right-wing authoritarianism, and my left-wing friends are always quick to oversee it. What I think is there's powerful people with money and influence, and I'm not one of those people. And I read history, and I know I'm always on the short end of the stick. So I look at it with a lot of suspicion, and this seems to be teed up like few things I've ever seen in the past. In my opinion, I'm just very nervous. I mean, they're talking about $2 trillion with $4 trillion.
I'm so with you.
If every cent of that money does not go directly to the American people, that's completely immoral. I'm talking.
But you know it's not going to happen.
No, I know it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Brock, on that one. It has to go. If they really care about bringing the economy back, bringing things to a sense of stability, not back to normal, but a sense of stability, most of that money should be going to making sure that again, like I said before, you need a strong populace in order to bring out an economy. You need people to be alive, and you need them to be able to function so that when we are able to finally go outside our doors, you know, in a regular capacity, that they'll be able to do it.
Well, I want to shock Brock, because he and I have butted heads over a lot in comments, but I would say I absolutely agree with you. You know, Agent, Brock and Joe agree on something. And that's why
and a moment in history.
Yeah, the one part of, or I wouldn't say it's the only part, but the biggest thing that I have a problem with the $2 trillion isn't the $2 trillion amount. It's the fact that there's that half $1 trillion of slush fund that kind of goes to corporations, and again, as a small business owner,
gotta bail out Wall Street.
Right. And
Again.
and as a small business owner, when I look at, politicians who claim to be pro business, and it's always pro big business, it's pro corporations, and it's never pro small business.
I just happen to own stock in.
Yeah.
It's pro nobles. It's not pro business.
Even though that, 80% of people are employed by small business and 80% of growth comes from small business whenever we're coming out of recession, but the help rarely goes to small business. And again, we're the ones who, and we do tend to have a more equitable pay scale between the people the highest paid and the lowest paid, compared to the corporations, where you get a CEO who has no clue how the product is made, making $23 million, and you got somebody pushing a broom at $14K a year, or actually doing office work at $14K a year, even worse. Or I shouldn't say worse, but you know what I mean. You get the point. But and it needs to go into demand side, not supply side, demand side, because demand is what actually creates jobs. And it's because if we the consumer classes, we spend most of our money. So if we've got money, we're going to spend it. I think about the TARP back in 2007, 2008, and a lot of that went to rescuing banks. But the thing about it is, I saw a statistic that said they could have literally paid off everybody's personal credit card for less money than what we gave to the banks, and it went right back to the banks, because who holds the notes on the credit cards? Is the banks.
Well, that's exactly what I was about to say, was why I got back on the screen, because I've always had this theory, I've been at least 15 years now, about they always do the Reaganomics trickle down theory thing, and it never works, right? But to me, like what you just said, but when he had the 11 years ago or whatever, if they could have given the same amount of money to the banks, but given it to the people at the bottom, paid their mortgages off. If you had 6 months or more of arrears, fine. Anything more than that, that's your problem. We'll pay everybody for 6 months, right? It all goes up through the system. They'll still get the at the top, but everybody else at the bottom didn't just get shit on.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, but here's the thing:
they would have started spending.
And that's what they need to do now. That's the same thing that they need to do now in this situation.
Oh hell yeah! But they're not going to do it.
It literally would be in everybody's interest, and this might sound fantastic, right, and impossible, but just think about this: if you literally put in everybody's bank account right now $100,000, right, all of that money is going to feed its way through the economy. It has nowhere else to go.
Right.
Yep.
But that's the thing, though. It's going to be making its way through the economy.
Right.
It's not going to be making its way to the people who already have money. If you pay off, I'm keep in mind I'm agreeing with all of you, but I'm just saying that that's the reason why they're not going to do it. It's not this whole thing, this $1 trillion bill that they're putting out there, where they say it's to boost the economy. It's not really about boosting the economy. That's a nice word they put on it so that people can go along with it. If you're trying to boost the economy, that means a healthy economy means the money's going around.
Absolutely.
That means it needs
the only way capitalism can work is if money circulates.
Right.
But they don't want money
not circulating and it all goes up and doesn't come back down. That's when you. I mean, this whole thing about billionaires and whether they should exist or not. My theory basically is once you earn $1 billion, you should be declared a victory. You won capitalism. Everything else after that goes right back down. And that way you have a closed system that has to rotate. There's no place else for the money to go. It has to go around and around.
Well, and we used to have that problem.
You have a system where there's a chimney and the money just goes out and it basically it's stored like fucking Scrooge McDuck and someone's, it doesn't do anybody any good. Who the fuck needs $100 billion?
Paul, we used to have that system. You know what it was called? Progressive tax system. When you had the top two tax rates at 70 and 91%, the purpose wasn't actually to collect.
That was under Eisenhower.
Yeah, and here's the thing: no one actually ever paid 91%.
Right.
It was there to be a deterrent. So basically, what's the point? If I'm going to earn another $1, but 91% goes out as taxes, there's no point in keeping it. But you know what? I can pay it to my worker, or I can invest it in my business. And then if I invest in my business, I don't pay any taxes on it. And if I give it to my workers, well, I'm only going to pay a tiny bit of taxes, and I'm going to get some goodwill because my worker's happier now, and they're going to pay taxes, but at a lower rate. So,
and not only that, but they might even buy the products that they're making too. I mean, if they're making really good stuff, then they're going to want to.
To me, everything you're saying is this is American as apple pie. I mean, all that stuff that's how it was working when I was a kid. I'm a last generation that can remember when you had most households in my neighborhood, it was certainly in my town for that matter, were one-parent income houses.
Right.
And how long has that been gone for? I don't even know, because I've been gone a long time. But I mean,
well, Paul, to your point, I'm sure you've seen the graph. I know Bernie's talked about it a lot, and some of the other politicians have talked about it, when they showed how when the wealth disparity started happening and started getting ridiculous. It was when we rolled back from 91 to 70%, it started, and then and Reagan came in and we rolled from 70% down to like 42%. It started to widen, and then it's gotten wider still. So basically, and that's the proof right there. When we had very, very high top tax rates, the wealth was and that's the thing. And it wasn't distribution by the money, taking the money and giving it away. It was simply you disincentivize people from keeping too much.
Right.
So here's why ideology should talk more often. You might be surprised. You might be surprised. I'm not sure. There's not a whole lot we disagree with. My issue as a libertarian is when the solutions have to always go through the toll, the toll booth of the government. This is where I start. My antennas go up. But as far as like empowering the people, as far as just saturating the people with this money, not only do I agree with that, but I radically agree with that. In fact, something really interesting politically happened just recently. Trump, when this stuff hit the fan on this, he called up Yang. I don't know how familiar you guys are with him. Yang had that whole like radical proposal. Well, he asked, I don't know if you followed this, but he asked for the documentation on how to implement this stuff. And to Yang's great credit, because I have to admit, Yang really appealed to me. He was an out of the box character. I had a lot of support for him. I still don't know why he didn't get any traction on the left. It's a big mystery to me. But regardless of that,
I think on the actual left, Brock, he did get traction on the actual left.
Not on the
media. It's the media left. He didn't get traction.
Right, I agree.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, regardless, whatever kind of bread and circuses, he didn't get any action on that. But regardless of that, what's interesting is, to his great credit, he had detailed, organized infrastructure for this, and very, very interesting, very appealing, very, very interesting bed buddies. And once again, when the smoke clears on this, I think we're going to be looking at a very, very different world. And I think a lot of things that people have never imagined before, ideologically, economically, are not only going to be open. People are going to be open to these things, but they're going to be forced to be open to these things.
Yeah, because they got no choice.
Right.
I have to bounce. I really need to get starting the cooking over here. It's like 6:15, so I gotta stuff. But it was nice to talking with you guys.
Thanks for hanging out, man.
Take care.
No problem. Yeah. And sooner or later we have to have that Lovecraft meetup.
I know, right?
All right.
So,
take care.
And Paul, to something you said a little bit ago when you talked about paying everybody $100,000. Now I did the math out. That's a bit of a stretch. However, interesting thing I figured out, because I remember hearing that roughly 227 million people are going to potentially qualify for the $1,000 or $1,200 check, whatever it is. So I did the math. If you gave all of those people $10,000, it comes to $2.27 trillion, only slightly more than what we're going to do anyway. So literally, you said, hey, everybody, here's $10,000.
Without a doubt, that's the best idea. The interesting thing about all this stuff is I have no idea who the political opponent would be to that, other than DC. I mean, I don't really, I don't really know. I mean, look. The thing is if they do something like that, like for example, I'll give you an example. I have a lot of left-wing friends that are always talking about wealth inequality, and it's not something I disagree with. The problem I have is I because I was a corporate salesman right out of college, I got an understanding of what these people do with money. For example, if you're making stupid money, I'm talking about crazy offshoring loopholes money, right? Serious, there's a chance you're making this kind of money, and you're right.
No, I'm not, unfortunately, but I'm working on it.
So like what these people do, which is why quite frankly, leftism bounces right off of me. Their economic ideas bounce off of me. Here's why: these guys don't pay the taxes that the politicians are talking. So what I mean is, it's all red meat to the populace. These people are moving money all over the place. They got shell companies. They're showing losses in this company. So just to go after them with some like talking point, you have to change tax law. You have to,
absolutely.
Everything else is just a laser for a cat to follow on the wall. You know what I mean? It's not real. It doesn't actually move it doesn't move anybody's economic circumstances. For example, I don't understand why my more left-leaning friends are opposed to stuff like consumption tax, for example, because you cannot wiggle out of consumption tax. And Washington, D.C. can't manipulate with it, but for some reason it's distasteful.
Well, the reason why, Brock, is because disproportionately it affects the people at the bottom.
It does.
Yeah, it's the most regressive tax there is.
It does, but think about this, right? It's very not complicated, so it can't be manipulated. And the thing is, when you buy yachts and cars and helicopters and planes, there's no way to wiggle out of consumption tax. Everything else is a pipe dream in my mind. It's just K Street writing these laws and us feeling good about ourselves, which doesn't change anybody's circumstances. That's all I'm saying.
To your point, actually, under Bill Clinton's 1993-94 budget, they actually did. Now it was only on we'll consider so-called luxury items. Maybe it should have been a little more broad, but there was one, which unfortunately got repealed later on. But yeah, I think there's ways to do it. I think you're onto something. I think there's ways to, because obviously basic food necessities should be exempted from that.
Right.
So this way you're not starving the poor.
But I don't understand how it doesn't disproportionately hit people with money. I mean, look, consumption on that level, just imagine the percentages you're going to get hit with. Plus the black market, which is enormous in America, all comes out of the dark.
Well, see, the problem is, Brock, is the average person in the bottom, just say someone making $10,000-$15,000, they spend every penny they have, so they're going to get taxed every penny. If I'm making $20, $30, $40 million a year, I can't possibly spend all that money.
No, I do agree. I do agree that the end game is always going to be disproportionate. But what I'm arguing is I feel like that's baked into the cake. And what I'm saying is you have to have something very real and easy and clear so you can't mess it up in DC and write all kinds of loopholes. That's always the problem with these convoluted things is you just
the loopholes exist, and they're the main problem, Brock. But the concept of progressive taxation is the solution that you're actually talking about.
But it goes through the government, Paul. That's
which
the
is
problem.
Abandoned.
No, but
listen. Whoa, look, I gotta.
Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
I gotta jump off the ledge here, okay? Because here's the thing. I'm obviously the most lefty of the people here on the screen, right? And so, you need to have the infrastructure in place for people to be able to prosper, right? The name of the game with society is for people to prosper, to have the most possible freedom, the most possible prosperity, and the least possible laws to get in their way, right?
So far, I'm on board.
This is socialist libertarianism I'm talking about. Now, the infrastructure, things like healthcare, for example, right? That's not a commodity. That's part of your infrastructure. If you have a healthy society, those people can prosper. They can live in peace, blah, 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 blah. Plus, as this pandemic shows us most elegantly, if people are afraid to go to the doctor, they'll keep going to work when they're sick and make everyone worse, which costs the economy more money in the long run anyway, if you want to break it down to an economic level. But on a more personal level, people are going to work sick because they're afraid or they can't afford to go to the doctor. That's not okay. I can make half a dozen arguments for why medicine should be free, but to me, one of the most persuasive arguments is its infrastructure, like roads or schools or the fire department or the police department. It's infrastructure, like the post office is infrastructure. Stuff like that shouldn't be privatized.
Right.
There's plenty of things that we have plenty of room in our economy for a market economy. Right?
Well, I don't disagree with you, Paul, except for the part of the solution running through a corrupt and incompetent government. But everything else you said, I agree with.
No,
everything else,
I agree with what you're saying. So in a society where the people participate in their democracy, right? The organs of society that I just mentioned, the physical infrastructure of society is owned by the people and administered on their behalf by the government. With a problem with America, and why I understand why Americans disagree or have such a problem with paying taxes, is because in America, you don't have much evidence of those taxes making your personal life that much better. Whereas when you have like the Scandinavian countries, they're not supporting a great big military budget, so they can spend the taxes on their fucking people.
Well, yeah, that's because America actually is their military.
That's not true. That's not true at all. But
I don't know about that.
No, it's not true. The world is safer with America being strong. I'll grant that point. Okay, just to get that out of the way. But what I'm saying is we're not their army. That's not true at all, especially with the current occupant in the White House. He'll let anybody fucking burn if it suits his interests. He doesn't give a fuck, right? But anyway, I'm digressing off my point. Back to the socialist libertarian part. Like, if you have the organs of society and the taxation is going to pay for that so that you can therefore prosper, you'll see that your taxation is your admission ticket to a prosperous life. But when your taxation is not that, I understand to objecting to it. I totally get it, man.
Yeah.
Because what they're doing with your money isn't for you, and they come right out and say it nowadays. When I was a kid, they used to pretend that they had your interests at heart. They don't even fucking care anymore. They're openly corrupt now. They don't even pretend not to be, and I almost find it refreshingly like honest. At least they're not lying to my face about it. But at the same time, it's more brazen because they're like, yeah, what are you gonna do?
Right. Well, see, one thing I want to point out again to Brock about I understand his point about it going to the government that which he feels is corrupt, but and there's a lot of evidence to corrupt, to be sure. But the thing is, like I said, no one actually ever paid 91% tax. It was a hard disincentive. They said, well, we can't actually tax you 100%.
Right, I understand.
So
well, if you look back on that tax rate, by the way, Sirius, there was an enormous amount of loopholes in that too. But just to be clear, Paul, I don't actually mind paying for it. Just for the record, I don't mind paying for it. I just mind paying for it through the gatekeepers of government. For example, I would trust my fellow citizens. For example, Sirius is a private business owner. I think the fact that the competence that's baked into the cake of somebody having to meet a payroll and be invested in their community and meeting their neighbors, I just prefer the solutions to come through that avenue. But the paying for it, not a problem. The government, for me, problem. That's just where I come down.
But as somebody who does that, here's the one problem with it, and this is the situation I'm in right now. So, okay, I've got employees, I've got a healthcare plan. Now, I'm not required by law to, because I have fewer than 50 employees. However, as a practical matter, if I didn't offer a health plan, I would only get employees that were either on their spouse's health plan or people who couldn't get another job. Obviously, that latter category are not going to be the best employees. They're going to be people who lost their job elsewhere and were willing to take lesser. And I found, in the 11 years I've been in business, I've come to find there are no bargains. When you get that person who came cheap, there's a reason. And you're not going to get the best person, and they're not going to stay, or they're going to be very limited, and you're going to have to find a way to get by with them in a limited capacity.
Cheap work ethic.
Right. Exactly. So there's that. Now the thing is that because I as a practical matter have to provide it, but I'm a small company. Of my 10 employees, I've got 4 people on the health plan, because some people are on there. I'm not on it. I'm on my wife's, because she worked in pharma for 30 years, and that's like the best healthcare you're going to get on the universe. So
what a shocker! Imagine that we have a 475% profit margin.
Exactly. So we have great care there. So I'm not on it, but we got 4 people on it, and so the thing is, because we're a small pool, because the way insurance risk management pools work, we pay higher rates than some of my larger competitors. A couple of places I used to work, one place I used to work that has like 70 employees. I know for a fact I pay more per person than they do, or at least the plan costs more. And then since I'm a small company, most companies cover 50%. I actually cover 60% as an incentive to say, hey, I'm a smaller company. I don't have the deeper pockets. I can't provide, some of the other things that big companies can, but I can give you some better benefits. So I'm paying more out of pocket twice. Plus the fact that now that I am providing it, I have to follow the rules, which stands to reason, right? Because so now and there's regulatory, and then there's just stuff within the stuff we have to know. So it means the True Puka, that's part of his job, is he's got to keep up on the regulations and also what the rules are from the insurance companies and the healthcare companies, so that we provide. So one, we get the best rates, and 2, that we can be in compliance. So that's actually adding a regulatory burden to me that I wouldn't have to have if we had a national system. I would rather pay the taxes and then wash my hands of it. Because why should I be involved with my employees' healthcare decisions at all? So
right.
Just for the record, man, you're arguing that, and I don't disagree with it, but you're arguing it in the present paradigm of healthcare, which I'm not defending. What I'm saying is a new healthcare system, a new healthcare paradigm, I suppose, would have to be created. I'm just saying I don't like the idea of it being turnstile through the government. I'm not disagreeing with the cumbersome nature of it and stuff. Hey, by the way, Nathan, I think I've been speaking over you for a while. You have anything to say? I just feel like
not just yet. I'm just taking
I
this.
Just wanted to. All right. I just didn't
conversation
want to.
in.
So all I'm saying, so serious. All I'm saying is I don't disagree with what you're saying. I've been close enough to this to know everything you're saying is true. I'm just saying you guys feel a lot more comfortable. So for example, as you look on, for example, Trump's in the White House, you have all kinds of skepticism about that, and rightfully so. So what's very difficult cognitively for me to understand is my left-wing friends want to turn around and empower and grow that same bureaucracy. I just disagree with that. I do agree with paying the citizens paying for each other's health care. I don't think that's the best mechanism through which to do it. And I think the evidence for that is ample and everywhere.
So we literally live in video game world, right? You know what I'd like to see? So I'm with you. I actually don't mind paying my taxes. In fact, I like paying my taxes because I see that as a symbol of the fact that I'm being a productive and contributing member of my own society. So I'm okay with that. What I don't like is exactly what you said, that there is no actual connection for me paying that money into this void over here, and then the results that are supposed to happen because of that. And it's like we live in video game world. You know what I want to see? I want to see every year when it comes around to tax time, I get told that, my income tax is going to be X amount of dollars. And then I can go right on to someplace like the internet and I can see all of the city, state, and federal places to which my tax money could potentially be applied. And I can see exactly how much tax money has already been applied there in by way of, I don't know, little thermometers that fill up to the top so you're like, okay, well, we'll just say $100 to make it nice and easy. I've got $100 that I have to pay in taxes, and I'm going to put $10 into education over here. I'm going to put $20 into roads over here. I'm going to put, $50 into things like the police and medicine or whatever. And when those things get full, they're full. That's it. And you have to put your money into some other category.
So crowdfund taxing. You do a crowdfund vote with your tax dollars. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but then you get to literally see either your city council, your state government, they can put all of the things that they because every year people submit their tax budget, right? Those get submitted, and in the tax budgets, it's itemized where this money needs to be allocated. But none of us get to see that. What if we just could?
So what you're talking about is called hypothecating the taxes, where you basically line itemize taxes and people pay. They know exactly which part of their taxes is going to what.
But they choose. It sounds like they choose.
If you could choose it, people like me, pacifists, would say nothing to the military.
Yeah, but that'd be the democracy. That'd be kind of cool.
Okay. Yes, that's exactly right.
It would be cool unless it emasculated our military.
Well, here's.
But then that would be what the people wanted.
I
agree.
I follow
exactly right.
Brock and SisterDanger though about what they said because for SisterDanger first. Actually, as to where the money actually has gone, we actually do have access to that. It's not presented necessarily with cool pictures, and I think that would actually, maybe if the data was presented in a way that was less esoteric and a little easier to understand for the average person, that would probably be a very good thing. But that data is all available. It's all public record.
Yeah, but so here's the thing, right? Is that voting? I'm just gonna make a straight comparison between this data and voting. Okay, voting, not hard. They literally send you your voting ballots to your house these days, right? What is our voting percentage? Why is our voting percentage low? Okay, I know that there are many reasons that go into this, and I'm not going to elaborate on those. There are just all kinds of reasons, right? One of the reasons, though, I think is just people. they don't have the bandwidth to be able to do it. They don't have they just don't have the desire to do it, right? Well, but look at the way that people will spend their time. People will spend hours and hours of time, like in front of a slot machine, or vegging out on their favorite TV show, or playing their video game. That's exactly right. And the reason is because it somehow entertains them, it decompresses them. If we were to turn the things that we want people to do, if we were to make voting, if we were to make the spending of taxes, tap into these different parts of the human psyche such that people aren't, it doesn't require that you read this huge voter pamphlet and then have knowledge on all of these topics or whatever, and that you could do the thing, you could get a general idea of it, and it's fun. People, like, it's actually a thing that entertains people to do. I think that would get more butts in seats.
It's innovative. It's innovative.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting idea, but I do have a quick, before we get too far away, I have a quick question for Brock, because I get Brock's distrust of the government, and he doesn't want the healthcare, the new healthcare paradigm to be run through, or have as the government as a gatekeeper, which I'm glad you actually said it that way, Brock, because most people erroneously, or some case, I would argue in some cases people do it like dishonestly, they'll call it government run healthcare, and it's not, but it's the government funded healthcare. So
administered.
The way you said it was a lot more honest than a lot of people that are against it have said. But the thing is, I don't, I'm trying to understand under what auspices, if it's not the government, under what auspices, who am I going to pay that check to go over the fence? I don't have any extra regulatory control or anything.
I mean, great. I'll grant you this. I'm no expert. This is a gut thing for me based on historical precedent with this government. But I'll say this: in 2020, there's so many bright people doing so many innovative things in so many ways. For example, I would be happier if it was still government, but it was just local government. I would be happier in almost any situation if some bureaucrat in Washington, D.C., who, first of all, Sisters in Seattle, right? They don't know Sisters community. They don't know those needs. They don't know the nuances of those needs and those people. And moreover, I would argue they don't care. And I think proof's in the pudding. Yeah. I feel very reluctant about giving them more power. I don't feel reluctant, just for the record, about paying for it. I want to be very clear. I think that could work. I do not want to channel that through a bunch of corrupt lawyers who are out of touch with reality, and I don't even think I need to defend that. So I'm just saying, but I would say in order to do it, even if you lessen the footprint of government, I'd get on board. So that's how realistic I am about it.
Brock, what do you think about my idea, Brock? Right? What if you funded the federal government with taxes on business, and all income taxes were state income taxes? So that basically working people didn't have to pay the federal.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
The government paid the state governments to operate their states. Yeah. And they would pay for the infrastructure in the states, and then the people would pay their own.
I love the idea. I love the idea, Paul. But I'm so much of a borderline anarchist. Why can't we just cut out the middleman and go right to the state? But I like that a lot better than the present situation. But I just, for example, the federal government has just lost its luster in my eyes. I look at them as a gag. I look at them as a mob. That's what I look at them as. And I think I don't understand why my citizens don't see that more clearly, but they have their reasons, and I respect that.
But here's why. I'll tell you exactly why. Because
we're addicted to comfort. That's why.
Well, here's one thing. So you look at because the practical matter is any federal program is administered on a state level in partnership with the state. So, for instance, Medicare and Medicaid are administered on a state level. The federal government pays a good portion of it.
Yeah, but as we see, buddy, Trump is cutting off states, and other administrations have done this when they don't get on board with the Leviathan of the. So I don't trust that system.
Right. But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. As far as, but here's the problem. So most of you guys probably know Schizophrenic Queen.
No.
You didn't know Queenie? I know she knows you. Anyway, so she used to live in Kansas. And the thing is that even though Medicaid is a federal program, it's administered to the states to the point of the states can decide whether or not you qualify, even though the feds are fronting like 75% of the cash.
Right.
So here she was, and someone who was disabled, couldn't work, and was basically told, no, she's not eligible for this necessary medical help. But if she lived here in New Jersey with me, no problem. She easily would qualify. So it's the same federal dollars. Why should Kansas be able to tell, her if she lives here, she's screwed. But if she's in New Jersey, hey, you're cool. And so that's the problem I have. And so
it's a good point, and it's a good point, and it's a mess that you have to be like. Either way, it's not going to be perfect, right? I get what you're saying, because the states are going to do crazy things, both morally and things that are out of step. But I'm almost more comfortable with that mess because I feel like I have more leverage over it. For example, if my mayor down the street really screws me, I can go egg his house. You know what I mean? Or so I like.
Do not TP it though, because that'll drive his property value up.
That's a high value commodity. Right, that's true.
I guess what I would say is this: I think at the very minimum, the standard has to be set by the federal government to ensure that all citizens have the same access.
I guess, but I mean, that makes sense in this context, but it's a slippery slope in my mind, though. It's empowering them in ways I don't want to. But I get what you're saying. It's not easy, and it's not like it's bulletproof. Right. It's just my preference. I just want to make a clarity here. The paying for it is not the problem. I often tell my left-wing friends, you want to move and influence people? Stop talking like that and start talking about the where we put the onus of the solution, because that's where you're going to win friends and influence people. Because you can talk until you're red in the face about how I should empower a federal government, which has pillaged the Social Security system. They promised people that money would be there, and then they just spent it. I'm supposed to turn around and give them all this money for a new. I'm sorry, guys, I can't get on board with that. I think that innovation is our way out, and I always like it when it has proximity to the people. But that's my preferences, because I'm a hardcore libertarian, and I don't like the government very much. So I admit that bias. I'm not saying it's bulletproof.
You have to be a libertarian, though. You don't have to be anything to be able to recognize that accountability is one of the, if not the hugest contributing factor into ensuring that things do not go corrupt in no matter what government system it is, no matter how big or small the community is. I don't care if you are talking about the school PTA and somebody that just has to manage a bank account that has a couple $1,000s in it, right? If they are able to do it without anybody looking over their shoulder, if they are somebody is gonna abuse that.
Right. That
is why we have redundant measures on all kinds of things for signing checks and spending money and I mean, and it's still people work, create that distance, and then as soon as they have a distance where they can't be very easily or even at all held accountable, they start doing whatever they want to go do. So
this is why you can't trust anybody with $500 billion. Trump just said. Trump just said that he doesn't want them to have any oversight over. I mean, you got to be literally. There's no human being that you can trust with that much money. No human being. You need checks and balances at many stages all the way along the way, going both directions.
I agree with you. I think this is baked into the federal system, but I agree with you. I think it's totally ridiculous. In fact, there's absolutely no argument in this case not to directly give that money to the people. I would shudder to think who would argue against that. By the way, the interesting thing about
heist.
Well, the interesting thing about this.
I'm curious to know what an argument against it actually is. I'm not up on arguments on either side, really. So
I haven't even heard it said. It's so disconcerting. You got the American people so sheepish that they just accept that this has to come from a slave master. I don't understand that.
What's really messed up is even some Republicans, even though they support the president with most things, even some of the Republicans are like, "What?" The more libertarian Republicans are nervous about it, and this is the problem of the lack of checks. But that's why I get so frustrated at people who don't vote, particularly people who are aware. Because look, there's a lot of people who just kind of go through life. They're just dealing with their own problems. They don't have time to pay attention or read or anything like that, and so they really have no clue. And a lot of them don't even vote because they're and maybe they probably shouldn't vote because they literally don't know what's going on, and they would be the first ones to tell you that. But I get so frustrated by people who are politically aware in whatever position, whether right wing, left wing, center, whatever. If they have a strong position, and then they still find a way to talk themselves out of voting. And I'm so angry because I'm like, well, you're helping whatever thing you're mad about to happen to persist because you're not getting out there and making your voice heard. You know, even if people don't listen, you're still going to make your voice heard. And going to rallies doesn't do it, and going to Twitter doesn't do it. The only one that matters is, as the old expression is, either the bullet or the ballot. You know.
I mean, I agree with you. I think it's disenfranchisement in the sense that they don't see. I mean, you're speaking to somebody like me essentially because I've lost such faith in the federal government. The voting does seem a little bit like urinating in the ocean. You know what I mean? But I still think you do it for exactly the reasons you just said.
Right.
But I think that's why people don't do it is because they're thinking. It's just, you know what I mean? It's like
I understand, but it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it's I
agree.
I agree. So they become apathetic, and then they get the result that they thought they were going to get, but because they didn't participate and to try to change it.
As much as I'm angry with the federal government, at the end of the day, if I'm intellectually honest, the American people deserve a lot of blame because our apathy. For example, like I spend a lot of time with the French. My wife studied in France, and I don't like their economics. I don't like a lot of things culturally, but I really like their passion. For example, if you piss them off, they'll start tearing stuff down.
You're not wrong, man.
And you know what? Like, say what you will.
Guillotine.
But I like that. There's a part of me that really likes that. I'm sorry?
Guillotine.
Yeah, the French Revolution maybe stepped a little bit too far. But I'm just saying, like even like when I was there, they were angry. It was 2 presidents ago. They were angry about I don't know what seemed like nothing to an American mind. And they were throwing the computers out of the university, and I went down and I was chatting with these guys.
Wow.
No, it was about they were able to fire somebody. That was what it was. The people were going to get fired. And I said, "What are you guys talking about? People get fired all the time." They're like, "We're not having it," and they were just throwing stuff everything out the window. To me, they shut all the trains down. They shut everything down, and I don't know that the American people have that in their nature. I think we're a little Wild West for that. But I think that complacency is on us. At the end of the day,
the French have a saying that revolution is only 4 missed dinners away. And it's really true. In France, you're not wrong. They don't fuck around.
They don't.
The minute I remember in the 90s when I was pretty green in this country at the time. And most British farmers who farm sheep have maybe 100 or 150 sheep. In France, the average sheep farmer has 12 to 20 sheep, right? So they were all pissed off because that was when the EU was first coming together and everything. And they were pissed off because they felt it was like unfair competition. And so all these sheep farmers went down with fucking dump trucks full of dead sheep and dumped them on fucking their equivalent of parliament. Just fucking dumped them there.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
Five tons of dead sheeps. In the middle of
where did they get all the dead sheep? Why are the sheep dead?
They did it on purpose. They're sheep. They're like, look, these are no good to us because you've killed our market.
It's put your money where your mouth is. And I like how their protests always inflict inconvenience to the powerful. Like American protests, jam up your neighbor's traffic. But I like to see the powerful inconvenience. Do you know what I mean? Gated communities, that kind of thing. But it never works like that in America. We just get on Twitter and blow hard. That's not true.
Although you try and surround a gated community and watch how fast the cops are on someone's side.
Right. That's the problem. If you do that in America, you're going to jail or getting shot.
And that's part of the problem.
In the land of the free.
The police are really the agents of the elites.
I agree again.
To maintain
power. They are. Yes, they are.
And that's a big problem. And and I say this again, people are like, "Oh, you're against the police." Hey, look, my grandfather and great grandfather were cops, so it's not like I'm totally anti-cop. But I'm also a black dude in America, and well, hell, the cops, they came. Apparently, somebody got mugged out in front of my house like 2 weekends ago. We were in the basement playing role-playing games on, with Zoom with friends, so we didn't even hear it, and the dogs were downstairs with us because we didn't want them roaming around the house, breaking shit when we were playing. So we had no idea. So then the cops came that night to see it because we have a security, camera at the door, but it's only on when it detects things. It doesn't have a continuous, it only has a short.
That's what we've got on our door.
And so now the thing is, and the cop knocked, and I'm trying to ask him. So I got my phone and I'm trying to talk to him through the door because I don't like to answer the door to anybody at night, especially the cops. and he wouldn't tell me why he was there.
Right.
And so that's making me paranoid because I'm like, what is he going to try to take me out of the house? What's he doing? And he wouldn't tell me. And I'm in a panic now because I'm like, because, you know, I'm like, I got dogs, and my dogs have a tendency, they're harmless, they're small, but they have a tendency to run out when you open the door. And I'm just thinking, you know, he's going to get spooked. And I'm finally, my wife got up and she went to the door. She's white. So that was that made.
Why would the cop not tell you why he was there? I wouldn't open the damn door either.
Well,
like,
exactly,
I'm sorry.
either.
Like, we don't even have to talk to you, guy. Like, come back with a warrant.
He kept saying, "Oh, I just want to talk to you." I'm like, "Well, we're talking.
We're right here. We're talking."
Right. You know, right. And he wouldn't talk to me, and I was panicked.
6 feet.
Right.
Yeah,
Social distancing. That's right.
You know, and I just can't trust him. I mean, hell, before I bought my current car, I think, Paul, you might have seen. I posted this on Facebook at the time. It's about a year and a half ago now. I was test driving another car, the same model, and I'm going the speed limit down a local road down in Toms River, New Jersey, and a cop's in front of me, and he pulled to the side, let me go past him, and then he came behind me and followed me, and he was going to pull me over, and I know he was, because I was going to pull into a McDonald's parking lot, and I was going to go through the drive-thru to try to get him away from me, and he put his blinker on too. So I realized where I was at because I knew the area. And I went to the light and I turned because I knew, like, I was like basically on the town border.
Yeah.
And he stopped in the middle of the intersection and was basically staring at me, like trying to decide, was it worth it to try to grab me before I crossed the border? And I just felt like,
I agree with you.
I was in tears because I was so angry because I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm driving a nice car. It was a used nice car. It was like a 2015 Chrysler 300.
It's what I call predatory police work, right?
Yeah.
They're looking for things to bust. I don't have a problem with police. Obviously, society would fall apart if we didn't have cops. We've all got to acknowledge that, right? There would be no civilization without some sort of authority. Right. Having said that, right? I know maybe it's the kind of thing that you feel when you get older, possibly, but it seems to me when I was a kid, cops were like, they had like incentive not to pull their guns out because it was more of a hassle for them to just even open their fucking holster would be like a big deal to them. They'd get in a lot of trouble unless they had to prove the need for lethal force.
Right.
Now the need for lethal force is he didn't cooperate.
Right.
You know,
I agree with you, Paul. You know, I've always thought this. Yeah, go ahead, Nathan. Go ahead.
A lot of police departments have quotas. I don't know if they still do this now in the majority, but a lot of departments have quotas. So you have to arrest a certain group of people, a certain number of people. If you don't get that number, then, you know, technically you're not doing your job. So then it becomes this ideal of I have to make numbers instead of
quotas?
I have to solve problems.
I knew cops had a quota for like the municipal fines they have to hand out. Like
like tickets.
In Missouri, in Missouri, that's actually written into the budget. 20% of the municipal budget and I think it's Ferguson and St. Louis. 25% of the municipal budget has to come from fining people for having things like a basketball hoop on their fucking front of their house or some stupid shit like that. Or having a hedgerow that's 4 feet instead of 3 feet tall and stupid shit like that. And what they do is they give you a fine for like a couple $100 or whatever. Then you can't pay it because you're already living on the fucking edge. Then you get a warrant out for your arrest.
Right.
Yep.
And then it becomes a lot of unnecessary contact with police in situations where there's actual crime going on in those high crime areas. And those crimes aren't being solved because the cops are messing around with
I call it police security.
Like I said, my nephew, you know, the cops were, you know, they know where the guy is, and the cops couldn't even bother to go to get it. And mind you, he had killed my nephew's friend, one of his friends, 2 months earlier. So this guy was out killing people. Cops couldn't be bothered.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they were pulling over all sorts of people who were minor bullshit.
It's a generalization. I hate to say this, but when I went to high school, all the guys that became cops all like fit a stereotype of mentality. It was
my high school as well.
Yeah, it was like they always had like, you know, this alpha male thing to prove. And I have, in my personal experience with cops, that is borderline watertight lived out an experience where they're just out there like, I don't know. I think if you fixed that right there, just that, you wouldn't fix the infrastructure problems institutionally, but you would fix a lot of the mentality problems where they're just.
How much of that do you think can come down to training though?
See, I don't know. First of all, again, I can't trust myself because I'm such a libertarian that.
Yeah, but you've been trained though, Brock. You've been through the military, so you understand the value of training.
Well, I guess it could be trained, but the
not
thing
learning
about
how
this,
to panic and shit like that.
I guess so, man. But the thing about this is, like, like for example, in my town, they might make $34,000 a year, maybe $32,000 a year, and that's like a sergeant. That's like somebody that's been promoted. So at some level, I'm just almost wondering. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say without saying it is what kind of people are becoming cops, right?
Right.
That's kind of what I'm trying to say. And can you train that? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. Like in the military. In the military is a good example, but they booted a lot of people out, Paul. Like right away. It was like out. I don't know. Maybe the police departments need to start doing that. I don't know. By the way, all that fining you're talking about, that's a tax we don't get to vote on, by the way, is all that.
I agree.
Right?
It's completely fucked up.
And to Brock's point, I want to add to Brock's point, because you're right, in the military, there's a certain standard. And if you don't meet that standard, and it's cognitive, it's your behavioral, it's all these different things. And if you don't meet those, you're gone. They don't put up with a lot of bullshit. It happens even in war, things will happen. But even when it gets outed, people's heads roll. But we have this mentality in our society somehow over the last 30 years of my life, where somehow everybody who's in a uniform other than the military, that they're sacrosanct, and that because they have a hard job, that we should understand whatever rotten, horrible things they do. And so there's even to the point where. I follow a few law channels on YouTube, and there was a suit a number of years back where somebody who was trying to be a police officer, and he was disqualified because he was too intelligent, and he sued and he lost the suit. So basically, there's that, at least that municipality was saying, no, we want dumb motherfuckers that we can just tell them a certain way and they'll just listen and they won't think critically, and that's legal. And there's something seriously, severely wrong with it. And so this is someplace, again, Brock, maybe we probably have a lot more in
common.
What
do you this might hit your ear initially as a bad idea, but what do you guys think about, because I've been following this conversation in the nation, and I'm very sensitive to it because I'm borderline. I'm not anti-police. I wouldn't call myself that. I like the way Paul framed this, but I'm very distrusting of a couple bad decisions away from being the SS in my mind, right? I'm just unnerved by that. So here's the thing I would say. What if each community, like for example, sister, can we use your idea of like private financing of this in your own community? For example, you hire the police and then they're like, it's not institutionalized. It's more. I'm trying to privatize this, right?
How could you protect that from cronyism? Though?
I know. I understand this has holes, but what I like about it is you could fire them. Like they're so close to like your neighborhood hires like so many policemen, and they have like they know your kids and they know, you know what I'm saying? There's like skin in the game rather than being like
community policing.
Yeah, and I think that's like an immediate problem to this cultural tone deafness and all this stuff that's going on. I mean,
it's almost like voting. It's almost like voting for your police department and the members thereof, but voting with your dollars. So I've kind of been thinking while you guys were talking, because I definitely agree that it seems like the police force attracts a certain sort of mentality more than some other job fields. But I also wonder how this compares with two other things. One is the availability of any people at all to choose from with relation to the amount that this job is getting paid.
Right.
When you have somebody who, so I think school teachers are radically underpaid. And if police and school teachers policemen and school teachers get paid approximately the same amount, but one of those is required to do things like throw their body in the line of fire.
Right.
I find myself thinking, how does any person, how does any person somehow see that as equivalent?
Well, see,
right?
here's the one problem, though.
If we paid them more, right? So if they were paid more, would we be able to then demand a better quality of person?
Yes.
Right.
Well, yeah, but here's one problem though with something you said that's structural, and this is what I was going to say to Brock about mindset, about our societal mindset, is that the idea that they're throwing themselves at the line of fire. The sheer fact of the matter is, with the exception of certain pockets of high crime, it's generally not true at all. It's actually on average, 50 to 60 officers are killed by, I'll say, perpetrator action as opposed to car accidents and friendly fire and things like that, heart attacks. So it's far more dangerous to be an electrician than it is to be a police officer in most communities. So the thing is, but we have the mindset, this job is so hard, it's so terrible, and that's when we start making these allowances. And this is the thing that's flummoxes to me, because Brock can speak to this as ex-military. If a military person breaks the rules, just say they go in a village, and hey, you look at a movie like Platoon, okay, guys are hopped up, they're in combat, people are shooting at them, and someone pops off and kills a civilian. That person and everyone in the chain of command that let it happen, they're on the mat. But what happens in civilian life, we allow police officers to get away with things that a military,
literally with murder
in an actual war, would not get away with. And how are we holding soldiers to a higher standard than our police?
That's a good point.
Yeah, you're totally right. Seriously,
there's that middleman.
You're right. I don't know why. It's so true. You know what? Let me tell you this. When I was in Iraq, I had a guy. You could not watch porn. You could not look or own or have pornography in the Middle East. You could not drink alcohol, right? You think that's a joke. It's not a joke, right?
Oh, I agree.
This one guy got some black market pornography, and they busted this guy, father of two, down to what would be, in the Army, a private, right? I was in the Air Force. So an airman. So I mean, they're
in the United States Army?
I was in the Air Force. Yeah. But I'm saying, but I'm saying, a lot of people just don't know that ranking system. But regardless of that, they took this guy's livelihood essentially. So you're 100% right. They throw the book at you. His commanding officer was busted, and if you do anything, like, there's a whole different justice system in the military. They throw you in Leavenworth. You're sitting between. You got a different court of law. I mean, it's real. Right. So maybe they need that. Maybe they need that for pornography. But the concept. But normally that wouldn't be the case, sister. It's in this case. It was we were in an Arab country. You have Sharia law. You have very, very conservative views on this stuff. And
let them bust their own people.
And the military's opinion was, I mean, I have my own personal opinions. I'm going to keep them to myself. But they did not. They did not allow the U.S. military to just. People did, but if you got caught.
Yeah,
they threw the book at you.
Yeah. Well, the thing is we're in somebody else's country. Right. We have to follow their laws. Right. And otherwise we're so if
it was rough. You had to drink
what it is.
You had to drink O'Doul's. You know what I mean? It was rough. It was rough.
But that's the thing. We hold our soldiers who are in war to a very high standard, and then we have in civilian life cops who are not at war, and we're like, oh well. That person, they resisted. He put his arms up, so of course the cop shot him. I mean, or strangled him to death or whatever. If we held cops to the same standard we held soldiers, we wouldn't have anywhere near the problem we have.
And maybe that's the answer. Agree. Maybe that's the answer. Is like a different code of, like military conduct. You don't face 12 juries of your community. You face. You face military tribunals, essentially. It's the real deal. So people, as a result of that, they do step out of line. It just happens way less.
Right. Whereas in New Jersey, here in my home state, we had this case. If you look up this guy, Marcus Jeter, he was at a party. Police came to serve a warrant on somebody, whoever they did, So, and the cops were like, if you're not this person, you better get the hell out of here, because otherwise we're going to arrest everybody. So he left, and then the cops decided to come after him. So they did. Cop pulled him over. Another cop came, thankfully, because the other cop, they didn't realize that the camera was pointing on it. These cops get out, and they bust the guy's window, pull him out of the car, and they're beating the hell out of him. And one cop is slapping his own hand and saying, "Stop going for my gun. Get away from my gun." This guy is setting up a pretext for a shoot, to shoot this guy. They bring the guy in. They charge him. He was facing 21 years. It wasn't until his lawyer petition, and mind you, now this was happening. So this guy, he saw it. His sergeant saw it. His watch commander saw it. The captain saw it. All of the chain of command, everybody saw this. Say, yeah, this guy deserves to be charged with all these things. His lawyer petitions under the Freedom of Information Act, gets a hold of the dash cam, shows that these cops are full of crap and they're completely lying their asses off. They didn't say a single word that was true, and then they drop. All that happened is they dropped the charges. I'm like, these guys, everybody, the cop, chain of command, all three cops and everyone above them who said this was okay should be busted. They should be out.
Well, I've made this point to you before, Joe, but there's a reason that a police badge is a shield. You know, there's a reason. You know, it's to protect each other. That's the whole point.
Hey, gentlemen, one of my toddlers is making a whole bunch of noise, and I got to check on that. So this should be my out. But I've enjoyed this quite a bit. And, Paul, thanks for all the hassle.
I think I'm going to wrap it up as well.
Paul,
it's like 3
real
o'clock
quick,
in the morning.
I just wanted to take the opportunity to personally thank you for all the work you've put in on this channel. I know we're the beneficiaries of that. So you probably, hear that from me a lot. But I really mean it, man. And since I'm looking at you, I get to tell you that.
You're here.
All right.
Thank you.
Before you go, Brock, I just want to say, Brock, I'm glad we actually got to talk because I know we've thrown barbs at each other in comments and everything, but I don't think either of us really knew the other person. So I think
I agree, buddy. It's been a pleasure, and it's the internet. You know what I mean? It's the Wild West. Take it easy, guys. I enjoyed it. Take care of each other.
Peace.
See you.
Take it easy.
Take it easy.
Right, yeah, guys. Here where I am, it's 3 o'clock in the morning.
Party!
Wow.
I'm going to wrap up the show, which means we've had a 3-hour-long broadcast, and I think we've covered a lot of ground, and that's been, I think, really great. I think it's probably the best Breakfast Club video we've ever made.
I'm so glad that I got to. I miss you guys. I do, and I was so happy to just see everybody and see people in the comments, and I thank you for everybody who watched as well.
We're on lockdown for a long time, so if you guys want to do it again next Saturday or whatever, I'm up for that.
Yeah, I have it on my own channel. I have literally now 2 days a week that I think I'm not actually streaming something. I've just expanded my content creation. Like
you're there.
You know? So
I've done like these vlog things. I like these little insights into all this crap too. I hear you.
Yeah, I'm actually quite enjoying it. I feel like as much as everything that I do, like for a living and whatnot, is very extroverted. I'm actually a pretty introverted, mentally speaking, intellectually speaking. Sure. I'm kind of so I'm super content to be even before the quarantine, there were times when I wouldn't leave my house for a week. I was good. Like I would just get some Jimmy John's, come to the door. I just have my cats, my coffee, and my books, and I was happy. And talking to people just on the internet, that was good, So I feel like I'm actually handling it a lot better than other people, that are in fact quite extroverted, and I feel fortunate for that. I also don't want to say that because I feel like if I even say it, I feel like it's bragging, and I don't want somebody to get mad at me. Like,
it's just making the best of a bad situation, and that's what we should all do. We should all be trying to make the best of whatever our situation is, whether it's not. I mean, that's just a good approach to living. Is just make the best of it, whatever you're doing.
I just feel like I mean there's so much weird that's going on, but ultimately I feel like I also see an enormous amount of positive, and maybe that's because of the communities that I circle in, but I feel like I've seen more people actually starting to look out for each other. I've seen people who have been resistant to technology for ages suddenly going out of their way to figure out how it works so that they can check in on their friends, check in on their family. And I'm like, that's a good thing. It's a really good thing. I've seen just people getting like, you know what? We can't go out to the bar and hang out. So let's have a live Discord hangout every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Come and join us and just sit around and talk to people,
Yeah, that's cool.
I really
that's
feel
what I
like
was
I've
from
just,
for today.
I feel like I've seen a lot of things, especially in handmade communities. I've seen just enormous amounts of Ren Fair community, festival community people just going, hey, guess what? We're stuck at home, and you know what? This is just impetus for me to learn how to play that instrument, impetus for
Right.
me to plant my own garden and figure out
Yeah.
the thing that I was, gonna do. And I don't know. I don't know. I feel strangely like I'm still erring on the side of positive outcome,
Well, that's
right?
good.
Even
That's a
though
good
there's
attitude.
crazy stuff that's going on, I still feel like there are some. I hope the new norm is going to be an ultimate net positive. That's what I hope.
I hope so too. One thing I've enjoyed over the past couple of weeks is like it feels like the 10, 12 years ago when I first got on YouTube. I mean, people are making little videos for each other, doing their little dances or singing their songs or playing their violins or whatever. It really does remind me of what YouTube was like back in like
yes.
Oh yeah.
I mean, people just
Sure.
entertaining each other because hey, I can and I'm bored and
Yes.
here, watch me sing this song or draw this painting or whatever. It's great.
Yeah.
Anyway, big love to all of y'all, and I'm going to end the broadcast now and go to bed. But yeah, I'll be in touch on Twitter again if we want to do this next week, and if we don't, we don't. But if we do, I'm up for it.
Hey, Paul,
right.
thanks for bringing me in, and missed you a lot. You're one of my favorite people in the world.
Peace,
And
brother.
I'm glad to have you back, Sirius. Here's my hugs to you. I'm so glad. Okay. Bye, guys.
Ciao, y'all.
Take it easy. And thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm clicking end broadcast.